Hello, it's George again, and we both threatened it, and you bastards have had it in the post for some time. And yeah, hello, ladies and gentlemen, before I start calling anyone bastards. Well, retroactively, if you can imagine, I've said hello, ladies and gentlemen, before I called you all bastards, and bummers as well. So, it's another podcast of myself and Simon. Take it away, Simon.
Hello, everybody. Simon Butler here, and
hello, George Cropper here.
Once again, yeah, jolly old George.
I've not been that bloody jolly recently. I've been trying to keep my channel and do one video of the sort of news and the expose of the sex-sordid underbelly of the UK YouTube scene, and on the other hand try and do a gaming video for the people who don't really care for them, which seems to be a much lesser percentage, but there are people who just want to put it any other way, a good bumming and a good bit of a gaming video, really.
I know. I had noticed. I mean, Jesus Christ, you've been churning out these Game and Watch things.
Well, they're quite easy to do, mate. I think the thing for those the old video games I have is that they're much more abstract, and I can sort of, when I'm doing them, obviously I don't do scripts for them, I just sort of ramble, but it puts much more imagery in my head rather than having something where all the dots are joined up for me. If I play a modern game, I always find I don't have that much to say, but an old game, I can read so much more into it.
Well, you know my views on playing old games. I'd rather rub my own shit in my eye. But no, I do get it why other people love what they do. They love playing the old games. And somebody quizzed me on my podcast, why do you think people play old games? So I did a little bit of research in inverted commas, and it's all about so they say it's helpful. It's brings back memories of your childhood and potentially days when you had no problems in your life.
That's. I think we touched on that last time, mate. Yes, indeed. It's a bit like those games become like the Pavlovian bell, really.
Yeah.
It's not so much the game itself. It's what it implies. As soon as that bell's rung, those people are transported back to perhaps a more innocent time when they didn't have as many troubles and the world wasn't as obviously interconnected and therefore exposed as being completely wicked.
I mean. Right, that's a topic we'll get onto hopefully later, which is, I think, connected to the ZX Spectrum Next. Oh
God, we're going there this early. Carry on, mate.
No, not yet. But I thought, well, I didn't just think. I sort of threw my 10 penneth in that. Your video was innocuous, really. I mean, it made a point.
I thought so too, mate. I thought so.
It made a very, very valid point. It wasn't in any way disparaging.
It wasn't hate baiting or anything like that.
No, people took it that well. Certain people took it that way.
Of course they did.
Immediately. But let's put that on the back burner and go for the elephant in the room, which is Chloe Varty. I mean, I've said my bits on my podcast. I don't do videos because basically I haven't got the technical nous to do them. And I don't think that anyone would. I mean, having my voice in two places on the internet is fucking terrifying thought.
Well, that's what I think of mine. I confine it mostly to YouTube, really. People say, why don't you do podcasts, George? I pretty much do podcasts. It's a lot of still images and just talking. It's not, I mean, a lot of people who watch my content are actually listening to it. They're not necessarily watching it. And that's why, to go back to the Game and Watch and stuff like that, it's not so much a love for old games, it's more of the fact that I can take that into the realms of abstraction and have something fun to talk about and amuse myself as well as hopefully other people. But it's more about just the talking and the mental calisthenics required to just do stuff without scripts. That's what I actually enjoy.
All right, I'm going to sort of...
Sorry to digress off the Varties.
No. No, you've made me think of something there. Right, I'm going to ask you a burning question. And and I know full well you won't take offence. Why do you think you are so divisive?
I'm not sure, mate. I think part of the thing I do with all the bad language and stuff like that, and the horrendous sexual imagery and all that sort of ridiculous stuff that I do put into my videos, and these ridiculous tall tales, like for instance the Game & Watch, was it Ball? I mean, that review's bloody ridiculous. It just makes up a load of stuff about Shigeru Miyamoto. But a lot of people don't like they don't like iconoclasts, and they don't like their sacred cows being basically sacrificed. I think a lot of people don't like the piss-taking aspects, and they're just like, I wish this guy would just be serious, and why is he trampling roughshod over these things that I hold in such high regard? People take these things very personally. I'm not actually sure why people can't extricate themselves from that situation where, like, you know, the game's a separate entity to them, the retro gaming hobby is a separate thing to them, it's something they partake in, but people have lots of a fractal amount of ways with which to engage with content or games, and I think it's just people are quite easily offended, and they come to the retro gaming because they think it's a sort of ring-fenced environment, wherein everyone's sort of all mollycoddled and behaves in a certain way, and most people are very mild-mannered, as am I. But I enjoy doing those videos as a sort of a cutting loose, and as I said, for sort of mental exercise as much as anything. And it's, I think, why I've got a small and vociferous audience, because they really like what I do, but they make up a very, very small percentage of things. My channel will never be big. I really don't think it will ever be big. And if it did get big, it would probably become, as people say nowadays, problematic, wherein people would be coming to it and taking the wrong end of the stick and thinking a lot of the things I say are actually correct and it's how I maybe feel about things, whereas in a lot of it's pretty tongue-in-cheek.
So you would be sort of the retro gaming Frankie Boyle?
I suppose, not intentionally, it's just that's the way things sort of come out. It's not a deliberately...
I mean, what rattles me is the people that do take offence.
I would say more the retro gaming Jerry Sadowitz, by the way, mate, because he's recently been subject of being deplatformed, which I could see myself being subject of if it got any bigger, you know. Sorry, carry on.
No, well, yeah, I kind of, I get that. I do get that, but I think that the people who genuinely take offence are the people for whom retro gaming defines them. That is who they are. You know, it's not something that they dip their toe into at the end of the day once they've been to work and dined with the wife and kids and then put the kids to bed. You know, those kind of guys that go to their, I fucking hate this phrase, their man cave, and then fire up some old console. They're just guys indulging in a hobby that I suppose somehow keeps them sane after the
rigors of a working week or dealing with the family and stuff. But
the guys who live and breathe and wake up every morning thinking retro, and their entire wardrobe is black T-shirts with some fucking long forgotten computer company logo on the front. They don't trouble me, but I kind of, I have to put my hand on my heart, and I suppose people would suspect this of me if I haven't already stated it online. I'm not sure if I have. You know, I walk into these events at Blackpool or Walsall or wherever, and I do sort of, oh God, you know, there's an eye roll when I see some of the people in there, and I suppose there's nothing wrong with being passionate, but when it defines you, when you literally, as you said, you can't take criticism of any kind. You can't take a light-hearted lampooning of your favorite computer or your favorite game character. If you can't rise above that, then you've got problems. You've got real fucking problems.
It does present a real problem for the individual, that, mate. Yes, it's interesting that you would touch on that, because the inability to divorce yourself from something that you essentially have no control over is only ever going to lead you to ruin in some ways, because it's always going to happen. There's nothing that is so sacred that people don't touch it. And ultimately, there's always going to be people like me, or it doesn't even have to be someone like me with all the swearing and stuff like this. Someone could just simply disagree with your opinion on a game. And for some of these people, it's literally DEFCON 1. And it will be a lifelong hatred that will be fostered for that person. Or, we had a disagreement about Dig Dug, I fucking hate them, or something like this. It's unbelievable. It really is. And it shows a sort of a disconnection with reality. I almost view it as, people might be offended by this, and these people I find easier to deal with. I almost view it as like Hare Krishna sort of thing, where someone's literally given up their own life and just given it over to pursuit of this almost godlike deified thing that really, it's just a thing. It's not even any sort of a religious footbase or anything like that. It's just a thing. It's just a series of old sort of crusty, stinking machines that have been around since the 1970s and 1980s, that you've gone all in that, and that is what you choose to represent you. I think there's a lot more to the individual than being represented by the things that you're into. And I know with the broadcasting of the wearing t-shirts and all that sort of thing, and people like to be sort of part of a clique, as they do with bands and all sorts of other things, but ultimately, defining yourself on something that's essentially completely mired in the past and isn't really going forwards anywhere. I mean, sure, there's people making new games for these systems, but I think it stunts one's sort of spiritual and physical growth to do that. So, well, not physical growth. It's not like you're not going to get taller because you don't like a PlayStation 5, but you know what I mean? It stops you from seeing the bigger picture of the world and perhaps finding something more positive or more constructive you could be doing. I don't object to it at all as a hobby. I play loads of games. I mean, most of my life has been sort of playing games, but I find the slavish devotion to a cause. I never understood console wars either. We've spoken about this before. I just never understood any of that. And that was, I suppose, the kernel of it. That's where it all kicked off for these people. And then from there, I suppose prior to Facebook and such like, winning a console war discussion in the playground maybe triggers a dopamine release, and they somehow get psychologically addicted to defending these things, and that's what defines them, and that's what makes them who they are.
And you end up calling yourself something stupid like Mr. Atari.
Indeed. You'll end up being the self-proclaimed Mr. Atari.
Yep.
And we all know how that fucking turned out.
Well, yeah. Well, I've been trying to somehow validate the recent tale about the retro, Computer History Museum, was it?
Yes.
And running off to, but we'll hopefully get back to that. But anyway, like I said, the elephant in the room, that is literally Chloe Varty.
Yes.
You've been fighting the good fight, and I've been trying to, I've put comments on your videos recently, and I do think it's a rather sad turn of affairs where, okay, we have, I'm not sure if you've fallen foul of it with strikes on your YouTube videos, but I certainly did from Mr. Atari. We have YouTube who will step up to the mark when somebody whines and complains that I'm being parodied and pilloried. And fortunately for me, the strike attempts all failed, as did the legal police efforts that Mr. Atari put in. But
because ultimately you weren't doing anything wrong. If you parody and lampoon with truth as your base plate, there's not really much people can do about that.
That's something that I was going to say nobody's taken me to task over it, but people have and said, why do you do this? Why are you being so mean? Well, I'm not being mean. I'm stating the truth. And in this situation with the Vartys, all you've done from day one is refute all of her statements with incontrovertible facts. I mean, nothing she said was a fact. She stated them as though they were.
Of course, but that's part of the way they operate.
I've not had the. I actually haven't had the guts to sit and watch the video all the way through once. I've watched it all the way through in bits because, and no,
just like Richard, mate, in bits.
Yeah, no pun intended. But I found it loathsome and couldn't sit and watch it because it was so manipulative.
It's a very difficult watch, isn't it? I don't understand. I've had so many comments on the channel, and it's great that these people have wised up. And there's a lot of people come over recently saying that, I took this at face value and I believed it and I felt bad for them. I maybe even sent them some money and such like. Now, that's fair enough. I mean, it was done to dupe people. We can't argue with that. It was a false narrative that was manufactured to dupe people. But when watching it, maybe it's just I've paid more attention to humans over the years or something. I couldn't see that as anything but just absolutely cringeworthy and completely disingenuous and obviously false. All the ticks are there. And as I said, it's been actually gone on to be used by someone, a psychology lecturer, I believe, in London, I think in King's College. And they're using that as an example for their students as to how to spot all of these red flags, because the whole fucking book of them are in one video. And with that in mind, and based on, how the human brain works, I just find it strange that more people didn't pick up on that, and that they basically got away with that. And the reaction was not to be like, hold on, I'm going to look into this a bit more. The reaction was to plough money into their coffers. And from the other point of view, from the other side, I have people on my channel, and, as you say, I have put out the truth about this situation, but there seem to be some people that just come over and they're enjoying the drama, but they've then, they've placed themselves on my side. And that's a sensible thing, because I'm not blowing my own trumpet. It's the side that's correct at the moment in this situation.
Do you have a trumpet?
No, I don't, mate. I've got a sort of bugle thing. You can only play one note on it.
You should cry on video and people will buy you one.
Yes, indeed, mate. I probably bloody should push the boat out. But there seems to be sort of, is partisan support the sort of correct word for it? It's either one side or the other. And when you're down on one side on YouTube, you don't pay any attention to the other. And even if the other side's full of shit, I think it's important to go and look at what's actually being presented by both sides of the situation so that you can understand it, rather than just taking, because I could be talking absolute rubbish. I'm obviously not making up all that stuff, but I could be.
Well, this is it. I mean, the one thing that never appeared in this situation, which did appear in the whole Atari Age thread, was nicely photoshopped comment there. There were no claims at any point that you had falsified any of the evidence that you brought to play.
No, well, I think the main thing about that is they can't refute that, and they know, if they're watching those videos, which I would imagine they are, or a representative will be. No, there's no way they're not. I would, I'm not, again, blowing my own trumpet, but I would have, if someone was making fucking videos like that about me, I'd be glued to the bloody channel. Be like, what the fuck's going to happen next, and how can I dig myself out of this?
Well, I think they'd be glued to the channel if, for any reason, it is that they are narcissistic.
Exactly. That's the other reason.
Because both of their channels are, well, I think his probably more than hers, because he was the one that took to this trade first. As I call him, failed teacher, failed wrestler, can't grow a moustache man. So I think for him, it's all about ego, and it's all about...
It's very much the cult of self, yes.
Yeah, love me, love me. And the fact that,
or more, maybe the narcissism goes further. If you permit me, it's permit me to love myself more, enable me to love myself more. I don't think they really give a single shit about the opinions of people aside from seeing them as numbers in the YouTube metric, and numbers in the Patreon.
I mean, when he realised that. Obviously, I've been told that he missed the boat ever so slightly in getting into the A-list of wrestlers, British wrestlers, but bollocks. I've seen him fucking wrestle on, and it's embarrassing in like shitty social clubs behind the bingo hall.
I saw a couple of videos, people posting me them and like, oh, have you seen this? This is what you used to do before. Yeah, it's just basically acting like a twat in someone's shed.
Yeah. And without wanting to be that guy, I mean, fucking hell, the audience, they all looked as though they were fucking related. It just looked like a bunch of fucking hillbillies.
Well, it's going to be pretty bloody marginal, something like that. I mean, if that's the only thing you have to do to entertain yourself, you have to fucking wonder about the people, really, ultimately.
But, so he went into it, basically for self-masturbatory purposes.
Yes, and to grift, to make money. He saw it as an easy way to make money. That's been verified by their scriptwriter who spoke to me about it, and a couple of other people who they know really well. So, it has been discussed. It's just...
Oh yeah, I mean, some of the circle, as we'll call them, or the temple of self. They've said their only topic of conversation is, how do I monetize this? How do I monetize this?
Yeah, how do we get sponsorships from this? How do we get free stuff from this? How do I monetize this? How does this buy me a castle? Basically, it seems to be the end plan of it.
So, people who want to follow them, they are the lowest common denominator, I suppose. But there's nothing that anyone can say to dissuade the avid audience. There just isn't.
No.
Why people follow him is a mystery. It's physically, emphasis on the word physically, obvious why she's popular. They're all desperately hoping just for a quick glimpse of Gusset, which isn't going to happen. I mean, she even says in one of her other videos where she's absolutely mortified that people suggest she should do OnlyFans, and she said, "Oh, how dare people sort of look at me and think, I wonder what her pussy looks like." Well, they'd have to like push your fucking gut out the way, love. But it's an unavoidable truth. She's piling the pounds on, and she's not getting any younger, and she's not getting any slimmer.
Well, this is true, mate. This is true. The thumbnails are very different from what's seen in the actual videos, I suppose, or the older ones or whatever.
Well, the thumbnails changed very briefly after the I'm So Scared video. She was covered up from the neck down.
Well, that's it. Yeah, you have to make a conscious attempt to appear more reserved and not to play up to the thing that you're known for basically playing up to.
And then they had the whole... I don't know whether figures dropped, but he suddenly posted the Bikini Karate Babes thumbnail.
Right, yeah. I mean, that's just a fucking joke, that video. I mean, I haven't actually watched that video. I don't really watch their content. I find it very difficult to watch their content. It's just like submerging my brain in a broth of fucking retardation. My brain just immediately balks at seeing it. But someone did send me a clip to a still image of the thumbnail. I just thought, for fuck's sake, mate, give it up. Like, really, is this it? You're so dragging the bottom of the barrel that you threw the barrel and several inches into the concrete. It's repellent. And it's only going to attract, as you've said, the lowest common denominator of viewers. Idiots, basically. It's back to the equivalent of him pacing around a ring, bellowing like a fucking moron in someone's shed. But he has the entire internet to do it to. He's basically rabble-rousing a crew of bloody baying idiots. And the two of them, particularly her, I would say, have set back the cause of women in YouTube and being taken seriously in retro gaming, amongst other people who've chosen to go this sort of way of titillation and such like. It just stops people from getting taken seriously, and I feel really bad for like women, because you see a lot of people creeping on women and stuff online. I mean, it's sort of standard, but I mean, people have to start taking others seriously as well. And I think a lot of women YouTubers do have something really good and valid to say, and a lot of them make interesting content, but they're completely obscured by these fucking morons who just offer nothing, bring nothing to the table, just have the tits out.
And while we're on the topic, to interject,
it's all right, mate. That was finished drinking.
Sorry for butting in like that, but right. I'm going to put my cards on the table with this one. I think we've discussed this in chats, and I'm not trying to cause trouble, and I'm not attacking anyone in particular, but I think it does need to be said. One of your commenters or fans, or one of the guys that commented on your videos last night, he touched on this, and I backed him up on it because it does need to be said that I do honestly believe, and I've said this to several people since the I'm So Scared video, that without Octavius,
this wouldn't have happened.
And her Horace video.
No,
this would not have happened. She weaponized the broken woman, terrified of a terrible man.
I've been trying to stay right away from that situation.
Now, I'm not sure if anyone else has done it.
No, definitely.
But within the British scene, there is no one so high profile.
That was the opening of the floodgates for this kind of behaviour, and that's when people had an inkling, hold on a minute, maybe I can actually weaponise and monetise drama if I behave in a certain way. And to be honest, the Varties must have thought this was fucking manna from heaven when Martin's letter initially landed, because they immediately started manufacturing a narrative, they immediately started playing up, and they immediately started deciding how they were going to grift off it.
When did he send and don't say Saturday, what month did they first get the letter?
I think it was August, mate. I don't have the sort of the timeline in front of me, but
so there you go. So she went live in September, or was it August she went live?
I'm not sure. I don't have the timeline in front of me. I've got that stuff sort of collated.
I mean, like you, I was not in the UK when that video hit. I was sat at my desk in Germany, and I saw it, and I instantly, not that I'm Sherlock Holmes or anything like that.
You don't need to be, mate.
I instantly knew this is false.
Yes.
This is a load of bollocks. This is a load of shit. But I was thinking about it through the day because I thought, this is terrible. This is absolutely fucking awful. And look at the stream of comments underneath. Oh, you poor babe.
Exactly.
I just thought, this has happened before. This is going to happen again. But,
I mean, it's a well-known thing. I'll bring up an example here to push things slightly away from Octavius at the moment. She did give them the idea. But, for example, I used to play this game, Guild Wars. It's a multiplayer MMO sort of game, and it's really hard to earn money in it, really hard, and you could get these gold tokens that took ages to get. And I was just wanting something because of, I don't know, some bloody promotion for armour or something that was going to disappear. So I was just in the main square of the town just basically shouting about it. It's like, can anyone please lend me or give me a bit of gold so I can get this? Because some people, the top players, have thousands of bits of it, and I only wanted one or two. Nothing happened. I was playing with my mate Gavin at the time, and he was like, yeah, good luck with that, George. And then I thought, well, my character was some little rodent thing. It looked pretty ambiguous, sexually or whatever. So I just said, can anyone help a girl out? I went to a different server and said, can anyone help a girl out with a piece of gold? Trying really hard, hun, or something like that. honestly, mate, I had about 100 gold in half an hour. And, you know, it again, Octavius definitely tailored her outrage to the audience and played them like a bloody fiddle. But people know what they're up to when they're doing that sort of thing. It's incontrovertible that no one can say they don't know what that behaviour is going to have as a result. But I think what she did was create a situation where it wasn't just someone saying, I'm a damsel in distress, I'd quite like some money please, or give me something that you've taken your time to procure. It was actually, let's attack this person.
Well, I'm going to go out on a limb. I don't know how much trouble I could get into for saying this, but I heard, so it's not based on fact, but I did hear rumours that the initial Horace video, the crying video, again was planned in advance.
I heard that as well. Again, this is conjecture on both our parts. We don't have any evidence that shows this, but there were a lot of people, sort of your kind of forensic analyst kind of people, I mean, obviously not literally, but people who do that sort of thing with YouTube videos were saying there's a lot wrong with this video when you actually look at it.
My rumours came from from people who are closer, and there were other stories as well. I don't know whether I can say without getting myself into trouble. So I'll leave it.
Yeah, if you think it's going to be getting into trouble, and we don't want to, I'm not looking to make this about her at the moment, but
no. But with regards to this situation, I mean, I think Martin McNeil, and again, I'm just guessing, I think he's probably had enough. I don't know if he's going to push it any further, and it's not for me to second guess him. But I mean, I'm asking your opinion now. What do you think the Varty's next move will be, and do you think this will have any lasting effect on either of them?
Next move, I'm not really sure, because at the moment I noticed, and what was also brought to my attention, they've not done anything in the last few days since the video went up with Martin's statement on Friday, and they may have uploaded something.
Correct. That was pointed out to me literally before I contacted you this morning.
Right. They may have uploaded something in the last few hours or something that I'm not aware of, I've not seen. As I said, I don't look at their channels. I'm hearing a lot of this stuff secondhand, and then I go and verify it. But no, they've not done anything. So maybe they've taken the STFU situation from Martin's video and they're actually taking it literally. Or maybe more realistically, they're thinking, look, sooner or later we're going to have to address the elephant in the room, and we've dug the hole so deep, how do we do that? And then on the other hand, there's me dropping fact bombs all over the place. Every few days something new comes out that just makes things look a lot worse. So do they deal with it now, or do they wait and deal with it once it's all come out in the wash? Or do they wait until the wash is done and they just completely ignore it and let someone else take the laundry out and hang it up? Just completely don't comment on it? Because I've had from a couple of YouTubers this morning about my video I posted up last night, Time to Shit or Get Off the Pot. And they've said, I see what you're doing, George, but there's no way I'm doing that. My channel's too valuable to me. I don't care about the fact of it's right or wrong. This isn't what my channel's about, and I'm not going to cover this. I'm not going to mention it. And this is people who've worked with those two.
Oh, you mean Slopes?
Well, he was one of the characters. It's people who've worked with and supported these two.
Yeah, I got this. Yeah, I've read that comment, and the thing is, right, while I was working away last month, I'll put my hand on heart and say, well, I chatted with Kim Justice, but basically, I think Kim would describe it as being interrogated.
Right.
And I just said,
I think I remember you talking about that briefly. Yeah.
Yeah. I said, well, you know, why won't you? If you're making this vanilla statement.
Yes.
I can't condone their actions. Well, can you condone them as people? I mean, if you decry their actions, you should decry them as people.
Which she has now done, in fairness, but this morning...
Yes, she has. Today, she has.
Yeah, today. But again, possibly after the bonfire I started last night.
Yeah, again, a little too late. But it's done now. She's done it.
Yes, it's done.
And Slopes has said he's done with them, but I'm wondering... Right, hold on. I actually believe it or not, I made some notes on this.
Bloody hell, mate.
Yeah, because I can't think on the fly like you do. So, right, hold on. So, first of all, I was disgusted by what they showed in the video. The fact that they asked for advice from all of us and then didn't take it puts all of us in the firing line. And it's resulted in each of us, one by one, taking a hit. Yet they refuse to talk publicly about it for various reasons. So my gut reaction on that was, so every one of you takes a hit, but none of you until today, and when Kim went on Twitter, none of you are prepared to do any damage control to alleviate the harm that they are doing to your channel by doing anything other than putting a tiny vanilla Band-Aid on the wound. You expect them to make a statement, but you haven't got the balls to make a proper statement yourself.
Exactly. And if they're so distant from the situation and they're so not involved in it, then what's difficult? I mean, it's not like they are TopHat and AD Decade themselves. If they're supposedly so fucking distant from it, just make a statement saying, well, you know, this is the situation with it. Here's my video. Here's my thoughts on it. And I put myself away from it, and I think it's deplorable. And, you know, I will have nothing to do with these people going forwards. It's very simple, very easy to do. It's actually very, very simple to do. At the moment, I've laid the groundwork where there's so much ill feeling against the pair of them, rightly so because of what they've done, and basically trying to destroy a man, his family and his livelihood, which... When you take it back down, that's what this is about, and it's fucking horrendous. And what was done to Martin was horrendous, completely uncalled for. These people won't stand for that. They won't stand up for it. They won't stand up and say this is wrong. It's all about self-preservation, and it's all about, well, I'm not, I agree with you, George, but I'm not going to say that on my channel. I've spent too long working on my channel, etc., etc. It's pathetic. It really is pathetic.
I mean, my thoughts on that are that they are scared that if they are seen to be, I don't suppose they're attacking them per se, but if they are denouncing Richard and Chloe Varty publicly, then my gut reaction is that they're worried that the hounds that were baying around Martin McNeil's heels will turn their attentions to them.
That's another part of it. That's very much another part of it. Yes, indeed, Simon. That's a very important part of it. And these people are known for... I've said this loads recently. I'm getting like a stuck record. By commission or non-commission of action, they're known for turning loose the hounds. So, you know, they've done it to me. They've done it to Rod. They've done it to umpteen other YouTubers. And they've done it to Martin. In an extent that's so severe that the police have had to be involved, and the subpoenas, or whatever you call the UK version, or maybe that is what the UK version is, going out to Twitter and such like in order to get the information for these people because they've made tangible threats. I mean, is that something people want to welcome to their doorstep? Is that something most people feel they could deal with? No, probably not. So this is another key part of it. But again, a united front. I hate groups. I hate groupthink. I don't like collectivism. But this is one of these situations where a collective of people all standing up and saying this is wrong, because that's what the UK YouTubers are known as, and that's how they perpetuate themselves, is as a collective and is as sort of all together. And you know, these people are all interlinked, and they are. So what better than to make a strong web that decries what's happened? And I don't see that there's any negatives to that. And, you know, a small amount of lunatics bad-mouthing them in the comments, turn on comment approval for a week or something like that. Would you rather spotlight something that's fucking awful Or would you rather just be quiet and roll over for the sake of self-preservation? I know the answer to that from most of these people, but the fact that the answer is I'd choose self-preservation every time is a disgrace. And it's what I expected, and it's a disgrace.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that 100%. But I've had members of the circle today actively defending other members, when I've said, right, I mean, I might as well say it. I took a pop at Neil from...
I noticed that, yeah. Well, you not so much a pop. You sort of wrote him an anthology story on his comment.
Well, I think so. He did. So you're going to set that bomb off you, are you? And he said I wouldn't do that. And rather than piss on the fuse and put it out.
Sorry, mate, just rewind a second. Can you clarify for listeners who maybe don't know the context of that comment? Can you clarify exactly what you meant by, you're going to bomb that and such like? Just
right. So in the Discord chat, you've got, there were quite a few that we've only touched on, or your screenshot have only shown a few. There was Dr. A or whatever it was, and Neil from Retro Cave,
Slops.
And obviously and Chloe, and I think Slopes is in there somewhere.
Yeah.
And there are others, but I'm not going to throw them under the bus because well, we haven't mentioned them to date, so I don't see why we should start causing trouble for them right now.
And it's not, to me as well, it's not about throwing these people under the bus. It's just exposing as much to them as to other people why they could be handling this much, much better.
Yeah, I mean, so Neil said, maybe you should meet him halfway and have you checked the facts on this? And I would take legal action. But then he just walked away. I mean, he literally just walked away. He didn't leave the comment, leave the Discord chat prior to her getting all uppity and pissy about things.
No.
Oh, the quartering's given us money. Sorry, she didn't swear. I'm not going to slip into her.
No, she did. She said fucking cunt.
That's true. I hope he does fight. And the quartering will drag him through the dirt.
Disgrace.
And Neil was still there at that point, unless I'm very much mistaken.
I believe so. No one ever at any point after that was just... I would have expected at least one person to be like, is that not a bit harsh?
Well...
No one said that. They were all just like, well...
Yeah, and he's markedly older than them. And he's kind of... This image he portrays of the sort of wise old man of retro gaming and computer hardware. I thought at least he should have said, well, hold on, let's have a private message. I wouldn't do that if I were you, love.
No.
Don't drag anyone's name through the dirt. Because you wouldn't like it. I mean, okay, we're probably guilty of that now, but it's kind of what goes around comes around. If
you choose to take a certain path, you can expect a certain series of end results, really. I mean, yes, indeed. If you choose to behave like that, that behaviour was going nowhere but into a whole load of trouble. And it was obvious sooner or later. They have a lot of detractors in that community. I'm not really sure why they're part of that. I think, again, it goes some way to sort of the fear kind of thing and the way they've tried to ingratiate themselves over the years with these people. They all seem to be very strange bedfellows in a way, and that I don't think there's the retro gaming, but I think the thing that ultimately holds them together is that they're all on a sort of big grift and sort of dredging the retro community for the UK retro community for the small amount of Patreon dollars it has. And it doesn't seem to take much to make one of them stab another in the back if it's going to clear them as a piece off the playing field, because it simply means there's more Patreon money for them.
Well, this is something that has been going through my mind since I started getting information, in that the information that is now being shown online has been I'm speaking purely for myself here, has been sent by they're friends.
Yes.
So it just goes to show the sort of the strong bonds that don't exist between these people.
Indeed, mate.
I mean, it's just a bunch of sort of. They're like the fucking human centipede.
Basically, yeah. It's all like someone puts in, I don't know, Mario game or Sonic game you've never heard of at one end, and then it gets passed through the entire lot out the end of the colon, goes back in again.
Well, this is something that, again, I can't remember whether we touched on it last time, but it's something that people keep on at me about. How long do you think this is going to last? I mean,
yeah, we did touch on this last time, and
yeah, they don't seem to realize. I mean, obviously, he's pulled her into the equation to
double the money.
Well, he was doing very well, but he thought, oh, you know, to quote the great Kieran Hawking, you know, I wish I had tits.
Indeed,
you know, and I can't get into any trouble because I have the screen grab of him saying that.
Yes.
About Octavius.
I recall that, yeah.
So he's thought, well, not only will we have two channels, but in next to no time, she'll possibly surpass mine.
And she'll have an army of simps. And we can just get her to regurgitate my old content because my audience are too daft to figure out that's what's happening.
Well, I mean, that is exactly what she's doing because he's trapped in this sort of Mobius strip of fight games that he cannot escape because he gets the best sort of viewing figures. But
he's understood how to make essentially clickbaity content based on low-hanging fruit, but ultimately that is a trap and you don't get out of that, and yeah, you just keep going around that strip. I think both of them have quite possibly, especially with this vast body blow, they've possibly reached their operational ceiling. Their rise was quick, and they have apparently videos talking about their metrics and all this sort of crap. It's things I don't even look at those pages on YouTube. I don't understand them, but they've cynically manufactured a situation where they've arisen from nothing, and they've got reasonably big channels. But is the audience there for the long term? Is any audience there for the long term? And when your content doesn't and cannot evolve, you can't expect this to continue, and it's not going to continue. The average YouTuber's career is 5 to 7 years, apparently.
I've looked at pretty much all of the Circle's channels and their biggest videos, which doesn't necessarily mean the biggest monetization by any stretch of the imagination, but their most popular videos were all years ago.
Yes.
I'd say on average at least 3 years ago.
Engagement's definitely dropping. Engagement is definitely dropping. On YouTube in general, it's a tidal thing, you know. They get washed in, they're on the beach for a bit, then they get washed out, and then another wave comes that brings something else in. People just don't, the audience retention, audience retention for a video, for example, most people will watch about a half or a quarter of a video if it's a 20-minute video. That to me is utterly bizarre. Like, why would you watch half of a story, as it were? But at the end of the day, people just digest content in a very strange way. They're very flittish, and there's so much content for them to look at. You have to be offering something pretty special for people to stay on board. And what these people are mostly offering is their own hot takes on something that's ultimately generic and can be had on any other retro gaming channel.
That's something that, I think a mutual friend of ours, who shall remain nameless, I chat with him a lot regarding another internet personality, in inverted commas. But, he basically says, it's like a snake eating its own tail. When all of this started, there was this pie that is content, and there were only, like two people eating towards the center. Not
many people had picked up forks, yes.
Yeah, but now there's 1,000, and they're all rapidly eating towards the center, and it's and just the Vartys themselves, if he didn't have to follow this fight game thread continually, then he could probably drag this out for donkey's years. But now he's got this woman in the other room who's eating away at his slice of the pie. And I mean, I know she originally started just repeating his old fodder, but between them, they're getting rid of their supply of material at twice the rate. And I mean, do any of them think that this career they've chosen is going to be with them? I mean, they're in their, late 30s, maybe early 40s. Are they still going to be doing this in their 60s and 70s?
Yeah, we discussed this last time. No, there'll be something completely different by then. This is an insane thing to hang your living on.
I mean, somebody, again, a mutual friend, said to me last night, and all the way through this, and I think you were the first one to mention it, but all the way through this, the big man of the house has been hiding behind his wife.
Yes.
And
he's not been the one responsible for any of this. He's either pushed her out to get her to do it, or she's quite happily put the trousers on and stepped up to do it. But however it's got to it, he is completely absent from the situation.
But he is the one responsible.
He's responsible, exactly. And even the way she talks about it, it's like my video. It wasn't her video. It was a TopHat video. It's bizarre the way this sort of...
She's kind of...
It's been...
bushwhacked this and taken it over, and everyone's got, Lady Decade's video. But it wasn't her video. I mean, the comments that I got last night was that she should be fucking livid with him. She'd be saying things like, you said this would fix things. You said he'd back down.
Exactly, yeah.
And now I'm being mocked.
But maybe she was all in on this as well, like him. Was like, yep, we both agree, because they do seem to be essentially peas in a pod. So maybe she said as well, this is the way to do it. Let's go fucking hard on this guy, and let's try and manufacture this situation.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, that they're very much a double act, a scary double act, because at no point would I say that combined do the IQ points get into double figures. No,
I don't think the IQ changes. I think that's part of the problem. And it's an interesting thing that you mentioned with the two of them basically stealing each other's content and each other's audience. I think their audience will ebb and flow between the two of them. Having the two of them on the go is not going to double their audience. It's just going to take attention away from his channel, because her stuff's the same material. It's interchangeable. It's just that she happens to be female. And in terms of sort of weaponizing your content in that way, that's always going to appeal more to the retro gaming shut-in than listening to a pompous man in a top hat. And that's just the cut and short of it. That's the way it is. So I think he's done himself in some ways a disservice by introducing her into the fray. And there isn't a double audience for them, but they will be getting more money at the moment than they were. Because obviously wounded, wronged female generates more money than, I don't know, flubbering idiot who's like Tim Nice but dim, but has a habit of being a crap wrestler at the same time.
They are worrying. But anyway, let's move away from them. And
well, we'll see what happens in the future as well. The future's not cast in stone, and there's a lot going to happen, I think, on that front. So let's just keep watching the skies, as it were, and I'll continue to report on it. And I'm sure you'll continue to talk about it, Simon.
I will, because...
as will everyone else. More and more people are talking about it now.
You see, I mean, the thing I've always stated that I'm Johnny-come-lately to all this, but at least... I mean, Craig Turner, and he won't mind me throwing him into the mix here, because I think Craig's a good lad.
Yes, he is.
He said he loathes the Vartys, but not just the Vartys. He loathes this whole sort of video jock career choice, because he says they bring nothing to it. They're bandwagon jumpers.
That's exactly right. I think I agree with that.
They call themselves creators, but, and I know that their get out of jail card would be, we're no different from an art critic or a music critic. Well,
no, but they are. I think they are, because art critics and music critics tend to actually know something about the thing they're critiquing. And to call themselves creators is completely disingenuous, because we all know that their material is mostly written by other people. And that goes for a lot of the top YouTubers. I don't understand what they are. They just become figureheads at that point. They're just a totem for things that other people have chucked at the base of them and they then comment on. There doesn't seem to be any genuine love for what they're doing. It's just simply put in place to make money.
And it's all very, as you say, it's very generic. And
yes,
if the creator doesn't make a video that has a series of images illustrating each of their points and fading from one to the next throughout the entire video, it's 9 times out of 10, it's a fucking talking head standing in front of a wall of games.
Yep.
And you go online and you go on YouTube and you go Lost Mario games, and fucking hell, the list is endless.
Yes. And who fucking cares? Like, really, who cares? And it's all, if someone did care, they would know. If someone doesn't care, it just becomes a pointless video to eat a bit of time out of their life when they could be doing something more productive. It doesn't entertain, it doesn't inform. It's just there to get clicks and to get people into it. Just as these clickbait thumbnails like Bikini Fighter Babes or whatever. So, I take a deep look at one of the sauciest games ever. Like, you'd have to be an idiot to be hauled in on that, I think. But unfortunately, this does nothing if not illustrate the fact that there are a lot of idiots out there. And that's something the internet does very ably on a great many fronts.
Well, yeah, because they're not... Their audience cannot grow outside of the retro community, which conversely is actually getting smaller.
Indeed. There's much better. I mean, there's people who make brilliant content on YouTube about all kinds of things. If you want something that's genuinely entertaining with high production values and such, like something that's insightful and will bring something to your life, you're not watching retro gaming videos. I mean, that's the sort of be all and end all of it. You're not doing that. This is a weird niche that exists way on a dogleg off the main superstrata that is YouTube. And it is, as you say, it's slowly getting smaller, but viewed from a distance with a telescope, it's the dictionary definition of the Ouroboros principle. It is devouring its own tail, slowly and willingly.
And like you said, I mean, you cited the 5 to 7 years for a YouTuber.
Yes, apparently that's the case of it.
But there's also, I mean, like I've just said, that so they've got 5 to 7 years to feather their nest to last them until they cock their toes in their 80s or 90s, which isn't going to happen.
Yes, I suppose it's like being a musician or an actor or something like that. You've just you don't guarantee your career, and you have to try and make as much as you can in that short time. So
they're never going to get anyone from outside of the gaming fraternity. But I saw a video recently, completely unrelated to this, but and it was a guy. Oh shit, I can't remember his name. But he's called The Honest Broker. He's got a channel called The Honest Broker, and he was being interviewed by one of my favorite YouTubers, a musician called Rick Beato.
Oh, I know Rick Beato's stuff. Yeah, it's interesting, that channel.
Yeah, and this guy said that the average TikTok is now sort of bigger than YouTube, and the average most successful length for a video on TikTok is 16 seconds.
Yes.
Which says an awful lot. So the Varties are never going to get anyone from the TikTok viewing field.
No, TikTok's full of attractive young people and such like, and young sort of. I've never used it, but when I see videos that have been shared from TikTok, I'm just like, what the fuck does this even mean?
I know.
It doesn't have the cultural sort of tempos that I understand. I appreciate I'm just old, but that's not a market they'll ever be able to cross over into.
But I mean, I don't even think, even though they say, they hold up all of these very expensive consoles, I truly don't believe that even their scriptwriter will be able to start creating material for, look at this. This is on the PS5. The most salacious game on the PS5, or the lost games of the PS3.
The thing with those old consoles as well is it's all well and good owning them, but it's just a badge of ownership. If they made videos about those old systems and the games on them, no one would be interested. It doesn't conform to the clickbait stereotype. There's no need for them to actually have those things, because aside from baubles on a shelf that idiots look at and think, wow, this person must really know about games. Oh, that's mad, that system. I've never heard of that. Aside from making 10 systems you've never heard of videos or crap like that, those things are essentially useless. They're not going to add anything to the grift. It has to be Mario and Sonic and all this, and Zelda and all the sort of bigger characters, because that's what the Americans tune into.
Right. I think we've said enough about those. I mean, we've given them more airtime than they deserve.
Indeed, and we said we were going to stop about 10 minutes ago, and it's not stopped. So,
well, it's a slippery slope. It is a very slippery slope, and it's hard not to get vocal.
Yes, indeed.
When they're mentioned.
Yep.
People contact me every day, and I'm not one of these Kieran Hawken people who say, "Oh, I've had hundreds of people contacting me." I've not had hundreds. I've had a couple of dozen people saying, "Oh, you're going to mention this, Simon? Are you going to talk about that in your next podcast?" But it's one of these topics that I think, that was the reason I mentioned Craig. Was that Craig says that the only people he would invite to his events are people who have brought something valuable to the community.
I've seen him saying that, and I agree with that as well. I agree with that. I think that's people who've actually, it's the same with this culture of everyone loving all young kids loving all these influencers and stuff. What do they actually do? Nothing. They just go around taking photos of things and showing a lifestyle that's supposedly aspirational. Why is that something all of a sudden that's become enshrined? And why are people funding this? I mean, creatives have never been more derided. And this is why, to go to Martin, this is why I think what Martin's doing is so important, and that there are people coming up through the ranks of the legal profession that are starting to understand what a malleable mess the internet is, and are finally realising, right, we need to actually try and lock this down and try and make sure that creators do get their rights respected, do get properly remunerated for their work. Otherwise there will be no creators left, and we'll be stuck with a desert with oases with thousands of influencers standing around trying to drink each other's shit, metaphorically, of course.
Well, hopefully. I mean, I'm not sort of trying to put myself on a pedestal, but, I understand that the likes of Chris Wilkins and Craig, etc., and Retro Computer Museum, they liked, let's get Simon here because, people will, I mean, in the past, at Walsall.
Well, you have a legacy, mate. You've been deeply involved in a lot of things that people hold quite close to or very close to their hearts. You've earned your stripes.
Well, thank you very much. I have had the accusation levelled at me that I am a dinosaur. Was it just
Is that where the dinosaur pie thing comes from? I was never sure about that.
No, I coined that, but someone else used it disparagingly and said I was just a footnote. But I'll take that. I'll take that any day.
Well, where do you get a staircase from? It doesn't start at the top. You start at the bottom with the first stair and then you build up from that. Without the first step, it's going fucking nowhere. So those first steps, any step on a staircase is inherently very valuable. And it doesn't matter whether someone's then cleared the stairs and they're at the top of it. Without the first step, they'd still be standing at the bottom. Without the middle step, they'd still be standing at the bottom. So for people to say, you're a dinosaur, you're in the past and such like, I mean, would people, I'm not necessarily likening you to these people, but would people say the same of Einstein, of Newton, of all these other people? Of great minds from the past? Are they just to be written off because they're not in the present? That's a fucking ridiculous suggestion.
Well, yeah, knowing full well who said it, always surprised. But yeah, I mean, I'm quite happy to be trotted out by the likes of Craig and whatnot, because I remember at Walsall, good few years ago, some young lad he was supposed to come all the way from Hamburg with a friend, and his friend dropped out at the last minute, and so he came all the way to Birmingham or Walsall by himself. His English was basic, to say the least, but I was gobsmacked. I mean, he hadn't just come to see me. He knew that there was going to be an Ocean Q&A. And he turned up with a little plastic bag filled with old Ocean games. And Steve Jolly Thompson was there, and Mark Jones, and John and Richard Palmer, and Colin Porch, and Paul Hughes, Jim Bagley. And so this guy had come like 600 miles or more by himself. And I was like, it was humbling. It really was humbling.
Well, that, mate, just not to digress, to go in on that a little bit, that's what this sort of work, that's what creation means to people. I don't really know, I just create stupid videos, but I would imagine if you actually create something that has that much of it, well, you don't know what it's going to do when you've created it. So a lot of people, creatives, are really bored of the thing when they've finished it, or like, no, I just want to put that behind me. And then all of a sudden it gets legs, and it becomes something that through the annals of history is fondly remembered and goes on to be picked up by later generations and such like. That's something that's very valuable to society, I think. And even if it's a small bauble like a video game or something like that, that's something that's touched and coloured a lot of people's lives. And that is something that's important, immeasurably so, I would have said.
I mean, to sort of gild this particular lily, when my eldest met her the man who would become her husband, and he was like, oh, blah, 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 what does your dad do for a living? And she said, oh, he makes video games. And, oh, anything I'd know. And she dropped my name. And he was like, oh, fucking hell, I've got games by him. Oh, Jesus Christ. And I'm not saying it was like marrying into royalty or anything like that, but the fact that he was marrying the daughter of someone who had created something that meant, as you said, a lot to him when he was considerably younger, sort of blew his mind. And this is what these and others, I mean, let's just like put one last nail in. Well, I'm not seeking to put a nail in Slope's coffin, but I mean, I think I don't know where the name came from, but yeah, he kind of slopes off and, hides in the...
It seemed pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of very fitting. I mean, he says, I have cut all ties with Top Hat and Lady Decade moving forward. I was under the assumption that it was all over when I did my voiceover work for them recently.
Which was 8 days ago or so.
A terrible move on my part.
When it wasn't so much all over, it was all exploding, and I've made enough videos at that point with incontrovertible facts in it for everyone to look at that. I mean, several other YouTubers, bigger YouTubers, have got in touch with me way before that saying, Christ, this is fucking awful. I'm stepping right away from this. And again, they've not really said so in public, but they got in touch way before this. This is way after the fact. And it's only, I think, in a lot of ways, I mean, I made that video last night saying the time to shit or get off the pot. And at that point, myself and Stokes were allegedly going to be having a chat today because he wanted to have a chat with me. And now he's messaged saying, I don't want to talk to you because I'm not prepared to go. I don't want to go down the alley that you're trying to take people down. I don't want to put my head on the chopping block for this. And fair enough, that's a personal choice. But, you know, to say that I've distanced myself from these people, I've nothing to do with these people. If you lie down with dogs, you're going to get fleas.
Well, I agree completely. But he said that he'd. I was under the assumption. I mean, apart from the appalling grammar, I was under the assumption. But if they were so close, you know, that they could contact him and say, "Oh, do you fancy doing some
voiceover work?"
You know, and reputable Twitch celebrity Trista Bites also did voiceover on the same video, and which probably hasn't done her that much harm, but really she shouldn't be doing it either. But if they contacted him and he, you know, I mean, if he's such a friend, could he not say, "Oh, how's the McNeil situation?"
Yes, exactly. Rather than just immediately saying yes. That's what I'm saying. All the information was out there. It was out there as soon as they did that chat on Discord and posted up the legal letter and such like. So, you know, it's all well and good having hindsight, but when you've actually got something shoved in your face for several weeks and then all of a sudden you decide, actually, I don't want anything to do with this. And how, I wonder, has this distancing come about? Has he formally said to them, I'm not taking anything to do with you anymore? Or is he just not going to reply to their emails or not going to publicly support them? Because I don't see him being the chap who's not going to reply to messages and such like. I mean, as he told me when...
Well, my thought was, when I read that, I said, well, if you've cut all ties, then where's the harm in stating that online?
Exactly.
Somewhere that everyone can see it, not in some vague podcast that nobody's really heard.
Or a Twitter post, or in a sub-thread, or in a hidden Discord, or in your own Discord.
Yeah.
As I said in my video last night, these people are YouTubers. That's what people know them for. People don't follow the extended network of satellites that they have spinning around them. That's just hubris to think that. And it's an easy cop-out. It reminds me of the time when Lee Fogarty was mouthing off during the Vega Plus, and he made that stupid statement where he'd basically been saying that, oh, I was actually taken for a ride at the end of it, and that, you know, this is how awful these people are that are behind this, when he did the complete U-turn. Ashens made a post about that, but he hosted it not on YouTube, not on his own channel, on some bizarre, it almost looked like fucking GeoCities, on some really bizarre audio hosting website. He put it right under the carpet.
He put it where, well, it is on, it's like that, oh, the evidence is out there, I'm not finding it for you. That old statement that we've heard 1,000 times before from the mole rat.
Yeah.
Oh no, I have stated that. I provided all the evidence. Well, where the fuck is it? Oh, I've hidden it.
You know, it just seems, if you're a YouTuber, say your fucking piece on YouTube. That's where your audience is. That's where the people are going to take things from. And by not jumping on board with this, and by basically not pointing out the problems, not pointing out the elephant in the room, these people are complicit in perpetuating it, as many of them actually have been in the past. I mean, most of these people are folks who've actually worked with these two.
Oh yeah.
And it's ridiculous. The mind boggles. And to get an email or a message from someone saying, I'm not prepared to do this, George, I'm not prepared to put my channel at risk. What's the risk? Where's the risk? Surely there's more of a risk driving in the middle of the road. That's the most dangerous place to drive. Pick a side.
Well, as I said in one of my comments, that I spoke to him and said, if you did make a statement, if you were the first one to say, not only was this a deplorable act, but I now realize that they are terrible, terrible people. And as such, I'm putting great swathes of space between me and them, and there will be no further connections. I said, not only will you undo the sort of damage that you're already doing to yourself by being guilty by association.
Indeed.
I said, you will gain respect.
Yes.
And he said, I'm not, if that's what I've got to do to gain respect, I'm not interested.
Yeah, respect doesn't pay the bills.
Yeah. Anyway.
Basically.
Yeah, we've said we're not going to talk about it. Let's move on.
Okay.
ZX Spectrum next.
Oh, yeah, the next. Well, what are your opinions on that, mate? Well, I think I've made mine clear in my video.
Well, yeah, because you came to it cold as a customer, a client. I can't remember. Correct me. You had one and sold it?
I had two. I had the board originally, and then I had the main system, and I sold them. Yep, I didn't like where it was going. I didn't want to have anything to do with it. I originally got them because I thought we had a software company plan called Next Level that we were going to be dealing with Next Software, and then I just saw what was going on with it and just thought, no, I can't be part of this, and this is awful. And if this is...
Go on, expand on that.
Just the community. I mean, there are a few good people in that community. There are a few good people I would class as friends. But ultimately, it was beyond toxic. And they created their initial social media pages and put people in the charge of the administration roles who were basically people who'd been spitballed and kicked out of pretty much every other community. I don't know why in the name of Christ they put those people in charge of things, but as soon as they began to run it like tin pot despots, and that's what everyone's basically clamouring for. That was the sort of behavioural template that was laid down in that system within that reality of those pages, and everyone just started to become like that. And there's this weirdly vociferous, I think a lot of it came over from the Vega Plus as well, because there's people in that group who have said, I'm the one responsible for destroying the Vega Plus, I'm the one who made sure they didn't get a console, I'm the one who ruined that entire situation. And that's been a narrative that's been, to some extent, perpetuated, and those people just haven't let go of that. So whenever my name's mentioned, it's like, right, that's the bogeyman. He can't possibly be doing anything good. And I think that was what caused a lot of the knee-jerk reaction to that video, because most of the people who were talking on your thread, I was getting sent clips of it by other people because they've all like blocked me or whatever, because the world of Spectrum twats, the people who were fully in on the Vega Plus and defending Lee Fogarty at the time, and when that finally went down, they couldn't, again, none of them apologised, none of them said we'd knowingly led you up the garden path about this, not a one. And they all seem to have chosen, instead of being on the Vega Plus, they've now jumped over to the ZX Next, and they're basically pissed in the water to such an extent that the pool's actually yellow over there, and no one in the right mind, reasonable members of the community, want to be part of it anymore. That is actually one of the videos I've made recently that's got me the most messages. It's really strange. I didn't think there'd be that many people who cared, but so many people have come and said that's spot on. That, I mean, they've said much worse than I have about the community behind it, and it does sort of sadden me to think that, you know, there's something that it could have been something quite promising, could have been a little niche market thing for people making games and just enjoying themselves and imagining what if, you know, if they had this new Spectrum. But it just seems beyond fucking toxic, beyond toxic. And then there's, I mean, I don't know Jim personally, but Jim's had quite a few goes at me over the years on Facebook in public and in private messages, and demanded I do certain things or retract certain statements. And, you know, having someone like that as a figurehead of the project who's very vocally against me and against everything I'm involved with, when a few people went on board with that who were going to do games for us, I think basically they decided, well, you know, it's one or the other. We can't be part of this community and have the sort of think tank involvement if we support George Cropper, so let's cut him off. And the alarm bells were ringing a long time before people even got the systems, and now it's going to be another couple of years till the next wave of people get their systems, or a year at least, or whatever. And it just seems like the whole thing's been a completely mismanaged, missed opportunity.
I've just called up your video, and in no way do I disagree. I am not part of the inner circle, nor do I wish to be.
Likewise, mate.
I'm just a potential creator I've got a couple of titles out there already. I think Lords of Midnight Remake was one of the first.
So that I wasn't sure if that had come out. That did actually come out. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've had a few other little things. I think there's a nice sort of music utility called Next Door by Gary Biasillo from Ocean. I did QB, which is just Qbert. But I was working on my own project, and I genuinely just got pissed off. I just lost interest because I thought, do you know what? I'm sitting down at my desk and I'm creating, and I'll put my hands up and say I made a rod for my own back by trying to be too fucking clever. And by clever, I mean trying to make every room look as pretty as possible. When if I'd made it incredibly simple.
Yeah, if it was often the case for these things.
Monkey McGee would be out. But because all the backgrounds were convoluted,
yes,
it was taking a couple of hours to create every single room. And I just thought, do you know, I'm putting all this time and effort into it. And okay, there is the possibility that it will make some cash somewhere down the line. But right now, I think I'd be better served finding a 9-to-5 job, which I did. And then that fell by the wayside. And so did a couple of other projects working with Mike Ware, who I genuinely like and respect. And I'm back working with him again on a project that's because Mike Cadwallader contacted me and said, are you still working on Quakestar? And I said, why? And he said, well, it's a bit embarrassing, but on the side of the box, we've got quite a few titles that have never seen the light of day. So I said, oh, okay. But that's not the real reason that I want to do that game. Mike, I genuinely like working with Mike, even though he can be a thorn in my side because he's so passionate. But I agree wholeheartedly with this why question that you asked.
I wasn't meaning to be unkind about that either. I was just genuinely thinking, like, why?
No. But you have to ask that about it. It's not a question that has not been asked about Google Stadia, Antstream, the Evercade, the C64 Mini. Everybody goes, well, why the fuck would you want one of those? You know, when you've probably got several C64s in the house. The people who are buying it are probably people who have more than one 64 anyway. And if they don't, then they probably play online. So it wasn't an unfair question, and it still isn't. Why is the ZX Spectrum Next being developed? There are members of the team who think that, oh God, yeah, after Kickstarter 2, they'll easily be Kickstarter 3. Well, I can't see that.
There's a law of diminishing returns on that, especially with the way that it's gone, because they weren't able to. This is no fault of theirs, and Jim was like, oh, George is a supposed to, well, he didn't use that word, but it's like, George is fucking moron, he doesn't understand about chip shortages. I understand exactly about it, I understand why it's been delayed, but the bottom line is it's been delayed, and that, saying there's a chip shortage doesn't take the bad taste out of people's mouths. It doesn't show that the project arrived with people in a timely manner. So when people look to invest next in the next, are there going to be many people? I just don't think so. I think they must have reached saturation point reasonably soon. It's not a system that's going to grow. It just isn't. I mean, no matter how people put it, it's like, there's some great titles coming out for it. There's not enough.
No, there aren't.
And there isn't really. As I said in my video, I've not seen a killer app.
No, as you said, there is no killer app.
I've seen regurgitated things.
There are competent titles out there, and then there's incompetent titles like, the ones that were put out by, what was his name? Colonel Kumquat or whatever his name is. The guy that just threw any old shite out to be the first one through the gate.
Yeah.
But I mean, as you said, I'm looking at your comments here or the comments on your next video. And like Paul Murphy, he said there was a next section of Play Expo in Blackpool.
That summed the thing up for me, that comment. I know exactly. Read it out.
Yeah, I thought I'd have a look and say hi. I mentioned I owned a Next and was basically blanked by the group. Maybe it sums up the Next community in a way. While I wouldn't go that far, it is very niche. I mean, as you said, right at the very beginning, with the first Kickstarter, people were very vociferous. They were very. It harks back to what we said right at the beginning. They were defending something that kind of defined them. How fucking dare you say that about the Next?
And lots of these people have put their eggs in the Vega Plus basket as well. So there was still the delusion and the disappointment hanging over from that. And then they got this thing that Bagley was behind, that Enrique was behind, and they just thought, yeah, this is the one. I'm putting all my impetus behind this project, and it's definitely going to succeed. And it did. It happened. People got them. But that also helped the groundswell greatly, because it was coming off the back of one of the biggest disappointments in the ZX Spectrum community for bloody years.
I mean, I can't remember the figures. Let's just. I know that this Kickstarter is like 8,000. I could be wrong, but the number 8 just keeps coming to me. And and I'm not being kind of Beryl Stokes and hearing voices. So let's say it was 8 and 8. So there's 16,000 machines out there eventually. And what, so you've got people, saying, oh yeah, but 10, 12 years later, people really learned to push the Spectrum, the ZX Spectrum, to its limits.
I saw that comment. That's fucking mental. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, but so we've got to wait 10 more fucking years.
Exactly. Are people going to wait that long? Fuck off. People just use Unity or whatever and make an actual game that loads of people can play and that everyone's got a system that will run it. I think it's, aside from a hobbyist sort of interesting, for people who really like to code on the Spectrum and for people who enjoy messing around and shifting your upper memory and all that sort of stuff, if you want to make a game and you're a creative, you use the best modern tools at your disposal. It doesn't really make sense to do otherwise, and especially with the lack of sort of speech and the decent soundtracks and such like on that. I mean, it's AY chips, and that was another thing that they decided on. And they shouted me down about. I thought you could do like really good interactive RPGs and stuff with full voice acting and stream it all off the SD. But no, they said, no, we're not doing that, George, because that's not in keeping with the way the Spectrum is. It's like you're defining the future of it, you fucking idiot. It can be whatever you want it to be. But someone recently said to me, you can actually stream that stuff using the Raspberry Pi that's inside it, but not all versions of that system, as far as I know, certainly not in the initial batch, have the Pi accelerator board. And basing a system on a third-party accelerator board, I think, is inherently quite a strange thing. I know it enables them to have the HDMI out and things like that. Or enables them to do things that it would be very expensive for them to create bespoke hardware to do. But it's just a strange thing, and especially when they are now subject to the chip shortage and they're almost impossible to get.
I mean, obviously they had no crystal ball where they could foresee these problems, but people don't like waiting for stuff. They just don't.
No,
I mean, because now we're in this world where
everything happens immediately.
Yeah, you can buy something on Amazon and it's delivered that day. And people, and I know an awful lot of Kickstarters, people just, I mean, well, not Kickstarters. I'll use Chris Wilkins as an example. He'll say, Zap 64 is now, it's released today. And tomorrow he gets a call from someone in New Zealand saying, my copy hasn't arrived yet. Well, it was only fucking released yesterday.
Exactly. So I thought you'd be doing like posting out before it was actually out. No, usually it's not fucking Faber and Faber. Usually when Chris gets the stuff in hand, it's in hand. He's not sitting on it for months beforehand.
And people don't seem to realise that, God bless him, poor Chris. I mean, he does manage to, his family do pitch in from time to time. But I was speaking to him 2 days ago, and I said, so what are you doing today? He said, well, I've got 6,000 books or 6,000 magazines that need packing up and posting.
He must have an incredible amount of logistics work to do. That must be a thankless task, really. Just an insurmountable mountain in some cases. Because, rightly said, and good on him. I mean, what Chris has done is really good for the community, and what the books he publishes are, for the most part, really, really good. And the magazines and bringing those back to people, it's a great thing he's doing. But bloody hell, I mean, the logistics end of it must be a real nightmare.
Oh, yeah. You know, getting up every single day and just saying, well, today I need to buy 15,000 Jiffy bags.
Yeah, it's like working in a mailroom, basically. If you're a self-imposed own making, I mean, obviously, having a scale-out company and having an external warehouse that handles that is far too much to take on board. But bloody hell, I mean, yeah, people don't think that it's just one person behind all this a lot of the time, and that there isn't much money in this hobby. And it doesn't really matter who you are. There isn't really much money in this hobby.
No, you're not going to be a millionaire. You know, I know that people have made nice amounts of money that have helped them. And I know that working with Mike, I'll make some cash over the next 12 months. But, you know, I'm not going to retire on it. I'm not going to buy an island and put my feet up. This is a little bit of fun, and that's all it is. And people don't seem to realize it. The fans, it's mine, so I'm precious about it, and I'm gonna defend it tooth and fucking nail.
Goes back to what you were asking me about why my stuff's not popular. I mean, that's the angle I'm coming from. It's pum fun, obviously not in the traditional sense, but it's about fun, and it's about, you know, taking these things and just sort of maybe taking the gift wrapping off them and such like, and just actually saying, right, let's fucking play with this. We've had enough years of this. It's long enough in the rearview mirror. Let's play with it. Let's just have fun with it. But yeah, it's strange the way some people guard this sort of stuff.
I mean, like you, I had the original Next, and yeah, I'll admit, I opened the box and I looked at it and I took it out, and it was very, very nice. And then I put it straight back in the box, knowing full well I would never ever use it. I didn't pledge on it as a member of the. As a peripheral member of the team, I was gifted.
Sure.
One of them. And I sold mine, and yeah, I mean, I got 700 quid for mine.
Oh, that's good. That's a lot better than I got for mine.
Well, and some very nice chap in Germany bought it.
It was a chap in Germany who bought mine as well, actually. Oh, maybe he's stockpiling them.
Yeah, maybe he's stockpiling. But anyway, I think to put a close on this one, I think the question that cannot be answered but still must be asked is why? Why is it there? Why is it a thing? Why are any of these things existing?
Different permutations. I mean, at least the Next is something new. At least they've done some attempt to make something new and different. But all these different permutations and endless re-releases of these old machines, it's just... I mean, again, it's got to be law of diminishing returns. It's got to be something that doesn't have much of a future in it. And I think it's reached and past critical mass now. And there have been a lot of these sort of scam Kickstarters and stuff like that have poisoned a lot of people against these things. But there's only so many times you can rearrange the same pieces and tell someone it's a different picture or a different puzzle. And I think that the strangest thing about the Next is, mate, I had so many people mail me saying exactly the same thing. I mean, Richard Chandler and people like that saying, oh, what a wanker, he never even took it out of his box. What does he know about the Next? there was just something about that. I took it out, I looked at it, I thought it looked great, as you say, but I didn't ever actually plug the thing in. And I've heard from about 50 people who are in the same boat and just sold theirs. So
I just read comments on your video, people who are saying, I looked at it. Oh no, one person said, the comment that sticks to mind, he said, I'm waiting for it, but I know full well I will look at it, maybe play it for a day, then put it back in the box and forget about it.
Then it'll go on the box and on the shelf and I'll forget about it. But if you can foresee that, I think it's the chase. A lot of this is about the chase, and it's about recapturing and rekindling that, as we said before, ringing that Pavlovian bell. But once they discover that, things have changed, they've moved on. When they look down at the hands, they've got old man's hands. They're not children's hands anymore. And it's just, the illusion, even in your own mind, you can't support it. And it just doesn't work.
Well, on a related note, this isn't, the Simon and George knock things chat. But I was talking to someone about Retro Gamer magazine.
Right.
And my comment was, well, for a start, they should rename it to The Making of Stuff and Other Stories, because every other fucking article is the making of Doom, the making of Myth.
Street Fighter 2 or something like that, yeah.
Yeah, and you just think, Jesus Christ. And also, every story not every, but there's an awful lot of them that they're duplicating.
Yes, of course, they have to. They have to regurgitate content.
They're old stories. And I'm just thinking, well, my comment to, I was chatting to someone online and he said, why? He said, I don't buy it anymore. And I said, well, I have access to every copy. And I see every new copy. And I said, I think people are caught, they're trapped now. They feel compelled to buy this month's edition because in the hope that when Future Publishing or whoever owns them these days says, right, that's it, Retro Gamer's finishing, they can breathe a sigh of relief and say, I have every issue. Who wants to buy my entire collection? Nobody's got the balls to stop mid-collect.
Yeah, when you back out, there's the same. It's a lot of these things are like that, magazines and comics and things like that.
So,
it's supported by an audience that perhaps aren't even reading it. They just get it in a jiffy bag every month and put it on the shelf.
That was it. Certain people in a kind of in a chat that I was reading said, "Oh, I'm up to date, but I haven't read the last 4 issues." You just think, what the fuck? And it's not a cheap magazine. It's not prohibitively expensive. It's not like some of the photography mags and the coffee table mags, but you add it up over the year and you think, so you could quite easily fall 6 or even 8 months behind. And then when you do start reading them, you think, oh, hold on, if I go far enough back, 3 or 4 years back, fucking hell, there's that same article.
It's the same article, or it's exactly the same beats hit by a different writer.
Yeah.
Because by nature of the beast, it has to be. And again, to go back to the clickbait creators on YouTube, they only go for the low-hanging fruit, because if they did all these weird games and all strange stuff, people wouldn't pick up the magazine. It has to have like Ken and Ryu or Mario or the people off Grisor or something on the front of the magazine that the people Contra rather the people recognise. Otherwise, they're not going to pick it up.
Well, I agree with that again wholeheartedly, but I am hoping you're wrong, because I'm currently submitting articles for a new magazine that doesn't deal with these old games. It's purely, it's not an Edge. It's not going to compete with the Edge. We're looking to touch on the indie market.
That's a much more interesting market inherently to cover, though, because most of those, most of the time I prefer indie games, most of the time. because it's a direct vision. I like the sort of crappy scrappiness of the old Spectrum games where it was just, why is this in a game, or why is this happening in a game? Oh, because it's the vision of a deluded lunatic. That's what actually was I used to find entertaining about those games. And the more it's got watered down, the more it's tried to please everyone, the more middle of the road things have become. AAA gaming's very boring nowadays, I would say, and they don't even tend to put gameplay features and such like in that people aren't already familiar with other games, because people would just put them down and not play them. So innovation's happening in the independent sphere, as it so often does in all walks of creativity.
Right. Let's go on to your, and I'm sure we'll stay on this. I mean, the next is, I'm hoping that what I bring to the next with Mike Ware, it's not going to reinvent the wheel. It's not going to set people back on their heels and have them go, fucking hell. It is just more of the same, but this is all I ever want to do with my games, is just entertain people, give them something that's value for money, that I don't even really care if they, remember it or talk about it, as long as while they're engaged with my future games, next games, they're having a good time. That's all. Simple as that.
That's what a game should achieve, really. I mean, yes, there's the space is open for innovation and such like, but ultimately, that's what a game should achieve. If you looked up game in the dictionary, I'm sure it would say something like, an activity that's taken part in by one or more people with the aim of enjoying themselves.
Let's find out exactly. An activity that one engages in for amusement or fun.
There we go.
There you go. And now let's have some amusement or fun with the questions on your Q&A.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah. Jim Cook. He'd love to know what the last game was that surprised you or I and did something unique technically and made you wonder how they did it. George?
Right, well, in terms of recently, that's unique and has interesting technical functionalities, I've not really seen that much, but I've not really been playing that many AAA things recently. I've seen mostly regurgitated permutations of the same thing. But something I played recently, I was genuinely surprised by the Amiga game Devil's Temple that I reviewed on my channel from Geezer Games, and that to me does not seem like an Amiga game despite running on an Amiga, and it is, to me, even nowadays, this is way past my Amiga years, it's quite incredible what they've managed to squeeze out of the system for that, and it looks and plays great, and the soundtrack, it was weird. I had to sort of I was listening to it and sort of think, get really into the soundtrack on that. It's very well done, but I had to keep reminding myself it was on the Amiga. It's really, really well done. So
looks nice.
That surprised me, as it could easily be an arcade title, and things on the Amiga, the colours would be a bit off, or the sprite work would be a bit less, animations are a bit watered down to fit on a disc and such like. I've zero idea how they managed to make that game. I think it's great, and I've been checking out the other Geezer Games stuff as well, and the other sort of homebrews are being done for the Amiga. I didn't realise it was that far on. So again, it goes back to your next thing of people saying, after 10 or 12 years, I mean, this is 20 odd years more. After the 35 years or so after the Amiga was done, we're still getting innovation in it. But that's something that impressed me, because I just thought, well, it's the bloody mindedness of it as well to continue working on the system so long after the fact.
Yeah, especially with you consider that whoever is behind Geezer Games, it's probably, I don't know whether that's their full-time job. I seriously doubt it. No,
it's a few different people that work on them, and I don't believe it's a full-time occupation. Maybe it is, but I don't really see how it could be.
Well, the one that I have played recently, and I started playing it again last night because I'd got myself well and truly stuck, was on the Switch, but it's also on, I think it's on PC, it's on Steam, I know that, I think it's on Xbox. It's called Tunic.
Okay, I've not heard of that.
It just looks like Zelda, isometric,
right,
but with a little fox instead of Link. And and boy, was I wrong. Yes, it is Zelda, but it's Zelda meets Dark Souls.
Oh, okay.
It can be brutal at times, and I don't mean unfairly brutal. It when I first started playing it, I thought, right, a great night's game. And within an hour, I was fuming. I was furious with this game, and I thought, you bastards, you've misrepresented it. But then I realized that it was me that was at fault, and not the game. I assumed it was A, and it turned out to be D. Yes, it looks like Zelda.
It looks deceptively sweet. I'm just having my mouse clicks there with just bringing up a video of it for me. This looks really interesting.
It is incredibly sweet. But it's a game that's not about... I know that Zelda was about exploration, but this is so much about exploration. Every single location you're in, you need to sort of push the little character against the walls to see if there's a crack that you can slip through, to see if there's a hidden ladder.
So it does. I mean, it takes that from sort of Dark Souls aspect as well, wherein the stuff basically almost hidden in plain sight, and you're really not just encouraged. You need to explore in order to get the most out of the game.
Oh, it really, really is amazing. And
this looks really cool, actually. I like the graphical style of it. I like isometric stuff.
The graphics in the game are amazing. The graphics in the manual, which is a vital part of the game, and the manual doesn't come with the game.
So how do you get the manual then?
There is you've got to find pages.
Oh, in the game then. So it's an in-game item. It's not something that's in a box you have to buy or anything.
Yeah, and you've got to find... Literally, honestly, George, I'd recommend you play it and let me know what you think.
Right, yeah, I will have a look at this. It looks good.
There is stuff there that I just kind of, the few pages that I found, I thought, it's just stuff to collect. But it's not, even though it's written in its own strange little Tunic language, strange hieroglyphs. You have to peruse and really look at every page
to sort of enhance your skills and to understand things.
Oh man, there's so much to discover in it. It might not be everyone's cup of tea, but
no, it sounds like it would be very much my cup of tea. Though it looks like it as well. The graphics are lovely on it, and I really like things like that where it's not all laid on for you, and you're not exactly sure where things are actually going to wind up going. And that's the thing that video games can really do way above and beyond any other form of entertainment. And it's something that people just often don't really do. And I think these...
And it's a one-man team.
There you go.
I mean, okay, that he's got musicians for the soundtrack. Sure. And the soundtrack was really nice. And I posted a video this morning. Somebody was talking to him. I think his name is Michael. But I know his name's Shouldice, so I'll call him Michael Shouldice. I think he's Canadian, and he shows the game when he first started working on it, and he shows all the iterations of the backgrounds and the character, and he talks about it. It's only a short video. I think it's like 15 minutes, but it was fascinating, and I'd like to hear him talk at greater length. But from my point of view, that game really surprised me.
Yeah, that looks like a really interesting one. That was, something that's completely passed me by. So that's Tunic on the Nintendo Switch, and that's for my game, Devil's Temple, on the Commodore Amiga.
Cool.
So,
right. I'm not sure if we've got, because I've got probably another half an hour.
Okay, let's blast through some questions quickly.
Right. Tone wants to know... any theories why the British retro gaming scene is filled with so much drama? I think we touched on that at the beginning because they're very precious about things, and they say, this is mine. Or like you said, the console wars. Fucking hell, I didn't get it. I mean, okay, I was considerably older than anyone at that time, like Steve Kane and I and all the people at Denton Designs. We were old, the the console wars was with school kids.
Yes, yeah, that's where it starts. Yeah, you have to be you have to be born into it and moulded by it.
Well, yeah, but that's it. Certain people, like Kieran, he's so precious about the Atari, and he wasn't there at the get-go.
No, that's true.
He came to it late, and I've got a screenshot somewhere where he says, people should not be allowed to talk about things they didn't experience firsthand.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
So basically, every history book, every documentary should cease to exist. Just
shouldn't exist. Yeah. Well, that's about right. I mean, if history books didn't exist, it would benefit certain people, wouldn't it?
Wouldn't it just?
Certainly, if massive Atari age posts didn't exist. I think, yeah, as we've discussed it before, I think another point is it's made up of marginalised people and professional grifters, and when you put those two together, they don't match. So it's always grinding up against itself like tectonic plates almost. Yeah, it's a strange one, but I don't think it's the British retro gaming scene in particular. I think it's just that we're a smaller community. Like the American community has exactly the same thing. I would imagine the Korean community has the same thing. It's just people on the internet, and it's taking place within something that's already marginalised and tends to attract a certain type of person, like myself, bloody shut-ins basically, who sometimes don't take too great to their sacred cow being poked at. Simon Laws has asked, favourite cafe for a fry-up in Liverpool?
God, I don't get out much these days. I basically say here at home. My wife does an amazing fry-up.
Well, that's it. If you can get the best things at home.
Oh, no, we've got one round the corner called L's Kitchen.
Okay.
And they do a very good fry-up. I think people these days have kind of, because I know you do like sausage, egg and chips, or I'm not too sure about the chips, but you do like your English breakfast.
I do like a sausage.
Don't we all? Don't we all? But I think the world in general, or at least the ones that I've stumbled across on my travels, everyone is kind of picking up on greasy spoons becoming less greasy. So I haven't found a greasy spoon or a calf that will do one of these belly buster breakfasts.
Right, yeah, like a proper builder's cafe.
Oh, Jesus, yeah, I mean, even the builders, it's all clean and the tables are wiped.
Right, yeah.
And they've got napkins. And you just think, the world's gone mad.
From my cafe in Liverpool, I do actually have a Liverpool story. Some of my relatives are from Liverpool. And we did go to a cafe on, I think is it Smithdown Road?
Smithdown Road, yeah.
Smithdown Road. And I remember that distinctly because I got a glass of orange juice and the glass was so filthy. I'm not joking. It literally looked like it'd been dipped in goose fat. And when I asked for another one, the woman tutted and sort of snatched it off me and said we'd have to pay for another glass of juice. Then my sister suggested decanting the contents of the present glass into the next one. Displaying once again a complete fucking inability to comprehend the root problem in any given situation. But I got another glass and some fresh juice, which was also, the juice was terrible. It tasted like really low quality orange juice that would say made from concentrate on the sides of the carton. It had a really sort of brown flavour to it, if that makes sense. But
brown, yeah, it tasted brown.
That was a very bad cafe. It was right at the base of Smithdown.
So roughly when would that have been?
That must have been about, I don't know, mate, maybe 1985 or something like that.
Oh, well, bloody hell, mate. That was round about the time I was living just off Smithdown Road.
We may have brushed past each other. If you had to move off the pavement for a young chap who would be wheeled along in a wheelchair whilst having a constant petty bickering session with his sister, it may well have been old George. I wouldn't have been old in those days.
Bloody hell. What a small world.
I remember going past a butcher as well. It was I think it was next to that cafe, right at the bottom of that road, and it was selling something called Scrag Mix.
Yep.
Have you ever... What's Scrag Mix?
Scrag Mix is just like ends of meat.
Right, because it did look like sort of loads of nondescript lumps in a Tupperware bowl. I've never seen that again. I was wondering, what the hell?
It's kind of a sort of a throwback to Victorian days when people... Well, you see, the thing is...
The cat meat man.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to explain to my friends out in Germany. Out in Hamburg, they have a meal called Labskaus, spelt Skaus.
Okay.
And obviously, you know that Liverpudlians are called Scousers.
Yes.
Because we have a meal called Scouse.
Yes, I know about Scouse.
Yeah, but our Scouse looks like a kind of Irish stew, whereas...
It's a bit like, I think there's something in Scotland that's similar. I can't remember what it's called, but it's like potatoes and bits of random meat. Yeah.
Yeah, well, in Denmark, I think most of the Scandinavian countries, I know Belgium and Amsterdam have a meal called Scouse.
Right.
It's meant to be a sort of sailor's or poor person's meal.
Okay.
But the German one looks like someone's run over your cat.
Right.
But it's still very tasty. Well, here we go. Right. God, I'm dreading your answer on this because I'm incredibly timid. Are there any horror books or what's your favourite horror movie?
Favourite horror movie? Is that who's the question from?
Well, we've got Paul Kemp saying, are there any horror books or other media? But that's about turned into games. But people, I'm sure someone did. So Duke Hollywood wanted to know favourite Amiga games and horror films.
Right. I mean, Amiga games and horror films are sort of too many to mention. I think The Thing, it's not really a horror, but The Evil Dead 2, The Shining, The Haunting, the original black and white one.
Oh man, you bastard! You actually you stole my thunder there. The original Haunting, yeah.
Amazing. I've shown that to so many people and told them to watch, and they've watched it and they're like, it was all right, but it's quite generic. It got a lot of sort of horror tropes in it. That's why they all started, you fucking idiot.
I know.
Basically kicked off all of that stuff. Even, I mean, looking at Sam Raimi's incredibly unique directorial style, it's directly pirated from The Haunting. Directly.
The Haunting is, I remember I was young.
And it's got Miss Moneypenny in it.
Indeed. I was young or younger, considerably younger. And I remember the bit where the banging.
Oh, brilliant.
Down the hall. And the camera just focusing on the door.
Yeah.
And foolishly, I incorrectly remembered that the door swelled inwards. And I think, and I've watched it recently and it doesn't happen. And I think, did that happen in the awful remake?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, that remake was an example of how to do something really badly. That was really not good. It basically, it was the exact opposite of what the original was. The original's implication and leaves you to do the stuff in your own mind. The sequel, or the remake, was just everything thrown at the screen with CGI. It was bloody ridiculous. But and The Innocents, do you remember The Innocents, the black and white film? I think it's a film of the turning of the screw.
With the children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where the boy throws the tortoise through a greenhouse window. And a film called Bad Boy Bubby as well. That
I have seen it just the once. Yes.
It's not a horror film as such, but it's more about the horrors that humans visit upon each other. And I think it's quite... It's one of the most important films that nobody's ever seen. I'm surprised that anyone's seen that film, really. It just seems to have gone completely under the radar because...
Well, everybody, The Room. And you just think, what? I can't even remember the guy's name, the director.
Oh, Tommy Wiseau.
Yeah.
That Room.
Yeah.
Right.
And you just think, why have people picked up on this? There are thousands of cult movies equally as bad as this.
Well, that's true, definitely. I mean, yeah, The Tenpenny. I'm not sure why that picked up. I think it's partly because Tommy Wiseau's I don't mean this in a bad way, but in the opposite of being a magnetic personality, he's quite a repulsive personality.
Yeah.
And people find that sort of car crash interesting to watch. And that The Room is more about the legend of Tommy Wiseau as opposed to actually being about the film being great. I mean, the film's fucking awful, but it's watchably awful because it's so bad and it so misunderstands the language of film and how to get that across. But ultimately, I think it's more the situation of Tommy Wiseau is the reason why The Room's become such a thing. And it's a sort of a really warped version of the American dream. Favourite Amiga games, Simon?
Favourite Amiga? Fucking hell. I mean, that's a tough one. None of the Psygnosis games. I mean, having said that, I have very fond memories of Barbarian, but not because I played the game so much. I mean, I hated the control method with those terrible icons on screen. But I remember going for an interview at Psygnosis when they were in their first office. Not the Albert Dock.
That was it. I was going to say that was in Liverpool, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. But they, I can't remember who. I think I've got a vague feeling his name was Martin. So I met this cunt who was the head artist. And so he said, right, show me your work. So I brought all these discs because, it wasn't the internet in those days. So you couldn't, send a link to your online portfolio. So he sat and he went, yeah, not bad, nice. They're okay. And I'll never forget, he actually said, come with me to my computer. I'll show you what really good graphics look like. And I thought, I don't even want to work here anymore.
No, this guy's obviously a prick from the very off. Yeah, I don't know.
And then he fucked off somewhere to, I don't know, go for a shit or something. A guy called me over and I'm going to have to, right. What was his name? Name of the artist on Barbarian. Garvin Corbett. And so this sort of, he looked like a little bit like a greaser, sort of long hair.
Like Davey Wilson.
Yeah, a bit. And he called me over and he said, he's always like that. He's a complete fucking tool.
Right.
And I said, he said, my name's Garvin. And I said, oh, yeah, Garvin Corbett. Yeah. I said, oh, really like your stuff on Barbarian. He said, oh, thanks. He said, you want to see the stuff that didn't get in? And he just loaded up some animations and they were really, really good.
Right. So why didn't they get in?
Oh, they were slightly gory.
Right. That's unfortunate.
He had the Barbarian doing a kind of a spin attack and a character being disemboweled. He had people's limbs being chopped off, but it wasn't the fact that it was gory that attracted me. It was the fact that it was 2D animation, which I still love to this day.
So do I, mate. I really do.
And when I see people who are amazing exponents of this, and I think I mentioned this, I've mentioned it on my podcast. I think I've said it on the last time we talked. There are thousands, if not hundreds of thousands out there infinitely better than me. That soft shite Hawkins said, that I disparage people all the time, put them down. But I don't. The people out there that I see and at times link to, almost on a daily basis, I'm blown away by the pixel art of the people out there.
There's some incredible pixel artists out there, especially a lot of the stuff coming out of Asia and things. You find out it's like a fucking 9-year-old or whatever that's done it. It's incredible. They have the tools now.
The only thing that I would critique or criticize is that an awful lot of these people, not that there's anything wrong with it, an awful lot of these people aren't even doing it for a game. They're just doing it.
No, they're just doing it. Yep.
And I think, fucking hell, put it in a game, please.
Yeah, please. Actually, you see some sort of mock-up. It's like, is this from a game? No, it's just something I did in a couple of hours. It's like, make this a reality. Do something with it.
Yeah. So Garvin Corbett, I mean, I have no idea where he is or what he's doing now, but if he ever heard this, or if anyone points him towards this little chat, that was the highlight of that day. I didn't get the job at Signosis. I didn't want it, actually, knowing that I'd have to work with that other useless cunt. But Garvin's work, I still love to this day. And, oh no, pixel art. Well, I'm not going to, I'll answer it, but somebody said, do I think it's a genre? And I kind of think that's a pointless question because it obviously is.
Definitely.
And is it an art? Yeah. The people who are the genius exponents in pushing these funny little, well, they're not even squares. There's people doing 64 art. There's a guy called Alain Morisset, not I can't even think of her name now. The singer Morissette, Alanis Morissette.
Oh, Alanis Morissette, yeah, Anus Morissette.
Yeah, Alain Morisset. He's a comic book artist, and I think you might have seen. I've shared some of his stuff. He's done a game called Pig's Quest for the C64.
Okay,
and he shared. George, you've got to hunt it down. I'm not sure if it's out yet, but it looks amazing. I mean, this is an example of people really pushing the old machines decades after their release.
Oh, yeah, that looks really quite incredible. Yeah, again, it's really something compared to what one would expect from the C64.
Yeah.
And really smooth as well. Oh, he looks great, the little character.
Yeah, well, high-res overlays. Oh, man. Work of genius. Anyway, let's get back to your crowd and the questions. Horror films. Well, if I name a horror film, you kind of hit all the beats for me. I'd say Evil Dead 1 and 2, but 2 is infinitely better than the first.
I think so. That's why I went with the second one. I think for me, the second one was a better version of the first one in a lot of ways.
I can't think of any. There are some kind of. I think there's some low budget ones that I like that aren't really horror. There's one called Planet of Terror, and I think it's by Roger Corman, and it's got. I can't think of his name now. He was the guy from My Favorite Martian, and it's also got Joni from Joni Loves Chachi and Happy Days. Yeah, there was a lot of stuff back in the 80s that I liked. That was just there was one called Extro.
Yes, I remember Extro and Extro 2.
Yeah, Extro 2 wasn't a patch on the first.
No, a bit like Chud as well. The second Chud film wasn't very good.
Yeah, Chud was good. I liked Chud. And like Basket Case.
Yeah, that was an interesting one as well.
But that was it. That when they were throwing stuff out at the time, trying desperately to horrify people with plastic and bottles of blood squirted everywhere.
Stop motion and miniatures and things like that as well. I remember The Gate. Do you remember that?
The Gate, ones...
It starred Stephen Dorff. He was like a child in it.
Yeah, they open a gateway to hell.
Yeah, with the heavy metal record in the back garden. I really like the little stop motion men in that.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Well, heavy metal, it's behind everything that's bad in the world.
Yeah, it's basically got heavy metal musicians involved.
Right, let's move on to another question because I'm going to have to get back to my wife is currently very unwell.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, mate.
She managed to break her shoulder, so I'm supposed to.
Oh, bloody hell!
Yeah, I'm supposed to be at her beck and call.
Sure.
And she has obligingly given me some free time.
Some leeway. Okay, we'll pick another question quick, smart. Then.
Best of the 80s musicians, graphicians, and coders. Musicians, I never liked working with Martin Galway. I found him pretentious and self-important. Jonathan Dunn was a really nice guy. Matthew Cannon was a really nice guy. They both turned out
right.
Great music. But for me, every time I never go with the the greats as people. For me, it's Fred Gray.
Right, it's an interesting choice.
Only because he I don't know. I remember having goosebumps when he came in. He said, "Oh, I've written this piece of music," and we heard the theme tune to Shadowfire for the first time.
Someone had asked. I think one of these questions had something about Shadowfire in it.
Yeah, it did. Someone said, "Would I? Are there any titles I worked on which I'd like to see remade and remastered?"
Yeah, that was it. Was there going to be a remake?
Would I? He would like to see Shadowfire, Gift from the Gods versions. Gift from the Gods, we can't touch because the IP belongs to someone.
Right.
But the IP to Shadowfire belongs to me because I copyrighted it, 30 years ago. So, yes, I'd like to see Shadowfire, but the only way Shadowfire could be done these days really would be polygonal.
Yes.
And I'd rather not. Thank you very much.
It's just a different sort of thing, isn't it? Oh, the best flavour of Monster Munch is pickled onion as well.
Yeah, I kind of go with that.
Yeah.
But who would you say for musicians, pixel pushers and coders?
I'm not really sure, mate. So it's like favourite films and things. I don't really like to narrow them down. I think, again, it's one of the major ones, but I like Tim Follin's work. I like Chris Hulsbeck's work as well.
Yeah, Tim. No, people don't throw his name around enough. They usually go for Ben, or the one who's the guy, Chris Hulsbeck.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, I reckon. I mean, he's the music for R-Type on the Amiga I thought was fantastic, and he did a lot of other really, really great music too.
The guys back then, it was for me. I didn't consider what I was doing to be mysterious in any way. When people showed me, oh, there's this piece of software and it makes coloured squares appear on the screen, and you can put them in any order and create pictures. To me, that was just like, it was just another magic marker. It was just another, there's oil paints and there's watercolours and there's pastels.
Yeah, just another way to create, basically, yep.
But music and code, to this day, I still see as the dark arts. Maybe not music so much because people are, I suppose that they're getting soundtracks with orchestras, but anyone that creates music from the ground up, just on the target machine, yeah, they're in league with Satan, and I admire them for it.
It is a crazy way to see it done on those old machines as well. It's just all the code and stuff behind it. Yeah. It's mental.
Yeah.
Mental. Favourite game in the Ghosts and Goblins series?
Oh, I'd have to say the original.
I think so as well. I think maybe, yeah, the first one. The second one's too padded, and I didn't like the PSP one and most of the ones after because they became polygonal, and I really like the sprites.
I mean, I got nowhere. I think I got nowhere like an awful lot of people because it was. I'd go out on a limb and say it was probably the first hellishly difficult game.
They're really hard, those games, yeah.
But yeah, I'll wimp out and say I have watched a walkthrough.
Right.
And I was, when you look at it now, it's not mind-bogglingly impressive graphically.
No.
When you consider an awful lot of games from that era.
I think the Super Ghouls and Ghosts was the most sort of impressive graphically of the sprite ones.
Oh yeah, but the level design and what the game designers expected from the gamer.
Yeah.
It just blows me away every time. And when I see people negotiate the challenge, I just think, fucking hell.
Yeah, I did a full Ghouls and Ghosts playthrough on YouTube without losing a life. That was bloody difficult, but I used to do that a lot back in the past. It's just
hold on. you went through without losing a life.
Yeah, on Ghouls and Ghosts. I lost my armour, but I didn't lose a life. This is on one of the videos, mate. You can watch it. For those of you who've not seen that.
You're fucking strange. You've gone up in my estimation. B, that is just wrong. Oh, man.
But I love those games, mate. I played them so much on the ZX Spectrum. I remember the first time I finished Ghosts and Goblins, it actually, when I started throwing the javelins at the demon that comes down at the end, it crashed and just went back to the 1982 Sinclair research. I pretty much went berserk. But it's funny that it's a continual thing throughout my life when I've got to the end of certain games and they crash. They reach sort of critical mass and then crash. I mean, it's not like anything major happened at the end of that. It wasn't like it wasn't a creature you'd faced before. The Spectrum one had a limited amount of baddies. But I then got really into Ghouls and Ghosts and then, yeah, basically was decided, right, I'm definitely going to finish this one and get this one done.
You see, I've never been... Are you one of these people that can kind of... You remember the attacks and the timing?
Well, I am in most games, but that game's not like that. Ghouls and Ghosts and Goblins are inherently quite random with the attacks. The rising of the zombies is all random. The movements of the bosses are all inherently quite random. I mean, there's bits you can sort of guard against and they'll behave in a certain way, but no, it's more about just understanding the behaviour of the game rather than the patterns, because those games don't really have patterns as such.
Well, oh God.
That's kind of what's the most pissy about them, really.
I don't know. I think right from the very first time I started gaming, I'm one of these panicky gamers. I get flustered. I just do.
Right.
I can never just stay calm and in the moment and blast through. It's very, very rare that I can do that. So, yeah, kudos for not losing a life. Fucking hell.
I did one of R-Type as well and of Manic Miner, but the R-Type one and the Manic Miner are examples of things that you can just do by memory, because those games don't change. Each level's basically the same. Where the bullets go can be different depending on where you are, but the enemies are all emerging from the same place and all doing the same thing. It can be learned.
Yeah, R-Type, again, R-Type's one of those games that I desperately wanted to beat and never did, and when I've watched a playthrough, I just think, oh, this, again, it's... stuff like sort of the huge battleship where you have to slot into sections to avoid...
Yes, it's all just got to be... It's like a map. It's a maze game, basically.
And I just thought, this is beautiful game design. It just is. And I enjoy that when... I mean, don't get me wrong. When I cited Tunic before as a game that's sort of set me back on my heels, it's a little bit flawed. You'll find out what I mean. There's bits.
It's hard to avoid that. There are often little niggling things about these.
Yeah, there's bits in this game where you break the mechanic
right
slightly. But I don't know how he could have avoided that.
When you put too many or so many things, not necessarily too many, but when there's a lot of gameplay cadences on the table, I would imagine half the battle about making the game is actually making those all work within each other and making sure the new systems you add don't break the old ones. If you've got an old style game that has very basic game language involved in it and a very defined set of maneuvers, it's much easier to make that a bug, or not a bug free, but an exploit free experience, as it were.
Well, I think that the one problem that exists in Tunic is the problem that exists in all isometric games. It's just a question of height. What is where, and you know, you'll find out there's a certain weapon you receive later in the game, and all of a sudden you're accessing things that you think you really shouldn't be able to.
Right. Okay.
You'll know what I mean when you get there.
Yeah.
And if you are the gamer that I suspect you've just intimated that you are, I think you'll get to grips with it and sort of get into it pretty quickly. Yeah, it, like you say, it's like to this day you games still have problems with collision and with cameras.
Yep.
And everybody thought, 3D is going to solve everything. It's going to change the world. And it did. But it brought as many problems as it solved.
It did. Every time there's a new advancement, it brings with it a brace of new problems that people then have to address. It's the same with virtual reality at the moment with the locomotion issue and how do you move in a game. You have to reimagine the way games are inherently put together to compensate for the fact that people just can't walk about in a massive space. Or that people might feel ill, or there's people like myself that can't walk. So you've got to put in some other means to actually enable them to move through the game. That's something I don't think anyone really thought of when they were first making the VR systems.
Well, I was talking to someone a couple of years back, and they said, we're working on VR, blah, blah. Oh, God, who was it? Oh, it was Mr. Bagley.
Oh, okay.
And I said, really? He said, oh, yeah, it's going to be good. It's going to be big, blah, blah. And I said, well, come on, Jim. I said, let's be honest. You and I have seen VR rear its ugly head 3 times in our careers.
Yeah, those virtuality machines and all that crap.
Yeah, and it's never taken off.
No.
The people just aren't solving the problem. There are too many fucking problems. And you've just cited, I think, at least 90% of the problems. It's just movement.
Yeah.
Movement and nausea.
Nausea is a big one, yeah. Now that the frame rates have massively improved, if you have a headset that behaves properly, the nausea is in a lot of ways taken care of. But as soon as you start to move and you're not moving in the real world, unless you're in a car or something that your brain accepts, or a spaceship that's like, well, you wouldn't be moving anyway, or a plane. But if you're engaged in walking locomotion, I can't do it, mate. Maybe it's because my brain's not used to walking locomotion, but I feel really sick really quickly. And if I play a game like that at 9 a.m, I feel incredibly seasick until I've gone to sleep and my brain's reset and I wake up the next day. It doesn't go away. And that's a negative for most people, I think, a major one.
It is indeed. Right. So I'd say we need to be rounding things off. Should we round it off with the demise of the writing career of the Mole Rat?
Okay, yeah, go for it. You start, mate. What you have to say about that?
I mean, we're not going to touch on the real reasons. You and I both know the true version of events. I found it laughable that he tried to nip it in the bud by making an announcement, albeit on his community page. I mean, this is all he's got left now: his community page and his Patreon page. And he's recently announced that he's reached 5,000 subs on his YouTube channel, all of which are, I'd say the great majority of which are bought.
Well, they've got to be, really. I would have thought so. Yep.
Well, there's no correlation between the amount of subs, the amount of views, and or the amount of comments.
No, none at all. I mean, that's the case for a lot of channels on YouTube, I suppose. But
the whole, because it ties into what you said before about how you've gone public over decade. Good old Daisy Dumpling, but all you've done is state the truth. And that's all I ever did on Twitter. Now, I might have done it in a kind of sarcastic manner, but all I did was point out every single error in the entire A to Z series.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter how you wrap it up. If it's factual, then it's factual, You can't take that away. A few people have said to me on my channel recently, it was like, George, I think you're a wanker. I find you impossible to really listen to. But at the same time, fair play for this. I can't deny that. It's the truth. And that, the truth it covers a lot of ground, basically, even if people don't like the vessel in which it's delivered. I
mean, this whole, we don't really side, well, I wouldn't say I sided with Paul Andrews because, I got a taste of his cease and desist over Stonkers. I see you're doing a version of Stonkers, Simon. I'd prefer it if you didn't. I own Stonkers.
Well, Stonkers has been re-released on Steam quite recently, so that's probably plays into something to do with that. But
yeah, but have you played any of his Steam product?
No, I haven't.
It's
no.
appalling. Absolutely appalling.
Right.
But that's neither here nor there. So I said, so you actually own the code? You bought the code? Or did you just buy the name? Have you been in touch with John Gibson? Now, John and I, we were rapidly approaching completion. But John, sadly, is now paralyzed.
Yeah, it's a shame.
So that's why Stonkers from John and I hasn't appeared, but that's by the by. But this whole publishing empire that has collapsed for the Mole Rat.
Yeah.
I mean, the cold, hard truth of the matter is that he's brought this on himself.
Oh, 100%. He brought it on himself, I would say months, but years ago. I don't really understand why it's taken so long to get to this point when faced with all the evidence and such like. But I think it's obviously just reached a critical mass where the toxicity's become too much and the content is of such low quality that literally you could ask a tramp to write a book about retro gaming and it would probably contain as much factual accuracy as one of his. You know, there's no point in releasing this. It's, as I've said to a couple of people that have always tried to bring me up or trying to talk to me about that bloody idiot What's-It, it's bad for the environment as much as anything else. People shouldn't... It's like the Chinese factories that put out like a bottle opener made of plastic that doesn't bloody work. Like, they should be stopped doing that because it's just bad for the environment. These books shouldn't exist because no one needs them. They're worse than bloody toilet paper. And they're just bad for the environment. They take resources to make. Nobody needs that stuff.
And yet there are, they're flying off the bookshelves.
Well, apparently, but they're all the ones that were still for sale, the hardback versions that are apparently the most popular ones, really flying off the bookshelves, all still sitting at Amazon.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, it is amusing that I own every single one. I actually own every single one of the PDFs, the Kindle books. Now that
do you have any physical ones?
Yeah,
amazing.
All of the compendiums. Well, you've got to see the extra content and the. I mean, this was another thing. The interviews. The interviews were lifted straight from Retro Gamer.
Yeah, that's. I mean, obviously, there's going to be some sort of shadiness or stupidity in the Goender's books because that's what he represents. But that's a bridge too far, I think, isn't it? Really, just because you've done them. I mean, he's been on retainer for Retro Gamer. Presumably, they're his interviews.
I think possibly it was the same with.
I mean, if they're not, that's fucking shambolic. But. Even then, he was contracted and paid for them, and he's put them somewhere else. I think that's
but he doesn't give a shit about that because
no, of course not.
The articles that were in Chris Wilkins' Amiga book are exactly the same ones that are in Mole Rat's Amiga book, which are exactly the same as ones that existed on Retro Video Gamer. Years ago.
Bloody hell. Someone was telling me that he's actually been asking Chris to publish his books again. I can't really believe that, basically, based on the history between the two of them. I don't think that's the case.
No, I don't. I seriously doubt that.
Well, Chris isn't going to do it for starters, but he would know better to publish with him.
No, he has stated that he plans to self-publish.
Right.
But I think by that, what he means is, hold on, he is offering PDFs of his books as exclusive content on his Patreon page.
Oh, right. Okay. So that's self-publishing in his books. You're not smart enough to start a fucking Amazon page.
In the final download for my patrons this month, Lair, Dweller and above, I present the first draft of the A to Z Philips CDI Games Volume 1.
Fucking hell, why would you want a first draft? Jesus Christ.
The first draft.
First draft?
Is exactly... No, it's the only draft.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, he does one and that's it.
It is Word. It's exactly the same as the finished product. And also, I haven't done a music download for quite a while. So here we are with a great game soundtrack. So this is a Patreon exclusive, right? Patreon exclusive of, let me find it.
He doesn't make games, though, so...
No, he doesn't.
Well, unless you count Steve Davis's Snooker, the 128K version, of course.
Yeah, here we are. He offers the music from Streets of Rage. And now, Streets of Rage music is the property of Yuzo Koshiro and Sega. It's available for free download on a number of websites.
How could he... Why is he so fucking stupid? Why does he think he can get away with doing stuff like that? And not so much that, but why is that something that's aspirational to own based on from him, based on the fact you can get it for fucking free in 101 different places? Why is he's not entitled to give that away?
Because I read somewhere, and it wasn't revelatory, but when people enter the internet for the first time, they instantly believe that everything on the internet is theirs to acquire as they see fit.
This is part of the problem. We see an increasing amount of that these days when young people especially don't value physical content. They just know that everything can be obtained for free on the internet as a digital download. They don't understand people actually have to create them in the first place.
I mean, at one point, he actually offered a documentary, I think it was called Bleep or something like that, just one word.
I remember that, and it wasn't his documentary, was it? Obviously
not, no. So I don't think he bought it. I think he downloaded it.
Yeah, just a DVD rip or something like that.
And he was offering that as exclusive content. But this is it, So, I mean, are we surprised at the demise of the literary powerhouse that is Kieran Hawken?
Yeah. Well, no, not at all. He's bloody ridiculous. It's ridiculous to me that it's managed to go on for so long, that he was ever in a position where, as he, so proudly claimed, he could call himself a writer. I mean, by that token, a child etching penises into a desk is also a writer. You'd probably glean more from looking at a desk covered in penises and, I don't know, writing of abuse and stuff than you would get anything from his books. There's nothing there. I mean, the bottom line is, even if you're a complete fucking idiot, you can find out so much more information so many other places than that fucking stupid bastard. His bloody books. It's ridiculous to even claim that those are of any merit. And his sock puppet account saying, "Oh, I learned so much from this book." I mean, have you been...
Oh, you mean Dreamcaster and Atari Rule?
Yeah, and Mr. Sejanos and Forza 77, Beast.
Oh no, Mr. Sejanos, he lives in America along with Dreamcaster.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
His mom calls Dave.
Yeah, but he does know Kieran. It's like interesting that someone would be acting like a complete fucking wanker on my channel. I'm like, hello, Kieran. It's like, no, guess again, which Kieran always says when he's exposed. But I do know him. Like, mate... It's too easy. It's too fucking easy. Then he gets back from his supposed holiday. Right, I've been off the computer all the time. No, you haven't. No, you fucking haven't. It's all you do. If someone sends you an email, they get a reply about 15 seconds later. Fucking ridiculous to claim that you're not constantly sitting online trying to put out fires and watch fires from afar.
So, he's had too much of our good time.
No, indeed, yeah. But he's getting less and less of it nowadays because it's just...
He is, yes.
He's further towards the outer echelons of the outer areas of the galaxy where it's just sort of garbage and bits of broken satellites floating around. And, yeah, that's where he finds himself, and rightly so.
Right. I'm going to have to shoot off now, George.
Okay, Simon. Well, great speaking again. Bloody long chat, this one.
It was a joy. Damn you bastard, you can get through fucking ghouls and goblins or whatever without... Oh, Jesus.
I'll send you a link to that. I'll maybe post a link underneath this video when I upload it.
That is mental. Absolutely mental.
Yeah. Well, it is a bit mental, I suppose. But then again, I don't know. I'd rather be like in charge of, I don't know, some massive business and actually generating money for myself rather than be able to say, I can perfect ghouls and ghosts. I didn't even bloody perfect it. I lost my armour.
Oh, never mind. Right. We'll keep in touch and we'll do it again.
Indeed, mate. We'll do this again someday soon.
George, thank you very much. Buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes, mate. Yes, and we'll speak to you soon, Simon. I hope your good lady wife gets better soon.
Thank you very much. You look after yourself, George. Speak soon.
Okay, speak to you soon, mate.
Been a pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Toodaloo.
Okay, I hope you all enjoyed that. For those of you who've stuck through it for the 2.5 bloody hours, a real marathon like one of the Lord of Rings epics. Lord of Rings? The fuck's wrong with you, George? Like one of the Lord of the Rings epics. But we covered a lot more ground. We saw, if you can imagine, I went to Mordor. We went from the Shire to Mordor and then did the equivalent mental legwork of going from Mordor back to the Shire again. And we maybe didn't even put the ring in. We just thought we'd keep it in our pockets. And then once we actually got back to the Shire, we could be, so we've even forgot to throw the ring in the bloody crack of doom. But anyway, I haven't seen any of that Rings of Power. I've been staying away from that. But that's another topic. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Simon hopes you enjoyed the podcast. And I'll see you in the next video. And the pair of us will see you in the next a double-header podcast from Cropper and Butler. Okay, bye.